everyone, welcome to YLab's Extended Reality event. This is Ernie, your host for this afternoon. It's my pleasure to have you join us during a busy work day and a Friday at that to learn all about the applications and potential of XR within the arts and culture space. Ever since the pandemic, the amount of content that I've consumed in this space far exceeds all that had come before. So like you, I'm looking forward to learning what's possible in this space. I hope that you will find virtual spaces and content where code and creativity give us an unlimited canvas to paint upon, to be as exciting as I do. But of course, it is not without its challenges. So we're very glad to have gathered here with us today a bunch of practitioners from technology and museum sectors, as well as artists engaged with such tools and practices who can hopefully help you avoid some common pitfalls. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Discord Extended Reality channel, and we hope to get to them with the lineup of speakers that we have assembled today. To get things started, I would like to invite Kevin, Deputy Director for Digital Innovation and Transformation from National Gallery Singapore, to share about why YLab is organizing this event and how you can work with us. Kevin, please.
Thank you, Ernie, and welcome everyone. Now, ever wonder if VR can and will finally become mainstream in our new normal? Observing recent trends in this endemic, prices of VR headsets are constantly falling, while the likes of Facebook and Apple are said to be working on the next generation mixed reality glasses that will look like regular glasses. Meanwhile, we're also seeing that there are more artists and museums creating mixed reality and VR content. But the big question is this enough to make VR mainstream? As part of YLab, Ernie and I are part of an art tech accelerator, and this brings in startups to imagine and build innovations with the art and culture sector. YLab operates as part of National Gallery Singapore, a leading visual arts institution which oversees the world's largest public collection of Singapore and Southeast Asian modern art. We are not alone. YLab does so in our growing ecosystem of artists, technologists, entrepreneurs, investors, all keen to explore the art tech space. Together with National Heritage Board, National Art Council, and Singapore Art Museum, we discover new ways of promoting art appreciation through emerging technology. If you're keen, as Ernie said, do join us on Discord to stay in touch and look for potential opportunities to work with us. Now, today we've brought together exciting talents to take you through the pioneering possibilities of art and extended reality, which covers mixed reality, virtual reality, and augmented realities, particularly to make sense of what it means for our art and culture sector. You'll see and hear from Lionel Chok of Immersively, a pioneer in the mixed reality space in Singapore, whose extended reality company has just been acquired by TOFS Technologies. So that's a testament of how serious mixed reality is becoming. You'll also hear from Iren of Unity Technologies, who will share the state of affairs of 3D and virtual reality and how this experiential platform is growing in the region. Javias Chu of National Heritage Board will share real-life examples of the R&D that the heritage industry is exploring, including his latest exciting effort in the realm of multi-user metaverses. So, and that's not all. We still got multidisciplinary artist Debbie Ding, who will share how she picked up the skills needed to do virtual world building, as she is quick to pivot her exhibition at the gallery into an online virtual simulacra so that she could offer virtual tours to potential visitors to the exhibition. There's our ever lovable Eugene So, who will share his journey on extended reality, where he looks at the sustainable ways of working, churning out viral experiences on Instagram filters for clients, while balancing his time for his own artistic endeavors. Christopher David from Philippines runs VR Immersive Technologies and is a founder of the VR Philippines community, which is thriving when it comes to mixed reality experiences. So he shares more from the region. Digital artist Shengen will explore emerging technologies as part of his art practice, including what he'll be sharing about in a while called volumetric captures with AR, and possibly share his views on how extended reality plays a part in the larger scheme of art history. Finally, we have a diverse panel of artists, developers, and technologies to share their experiences on extended reality. We hope that you enjoy this boot camp on extended reality and would love your questions and feedback at the end. Right now, creative technologist Lionel will take you through our extended reality journey today. Having been in the business as a pioneer and advisor to many of our alternate reality endeavor, he will guide us through and moderate the expert panel at the end. Over to you, Lionel.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's event. Really excited to actually see everyone, and thanks for joining us. I guess the main content of the event is really hearing from the artists in a second half. So let me just share a very broad view, a very quick overview of what's happening both locally and regionally and internationally, and hope to give sort of the landscape of where XR is. So Immersively actually specializes in B2B applications. We've done a whole slate of this over the past 5 years, so across many different industries. And I'm really speaking or sharing here based on the number of hats that I wear. I do quite a number of things and get invited to quite a number of roles. And I hope that with these roles, I'm able to get in touch with some of these regional international contacts that appears in my feed so that I can then in turn share them with you. But I think the question that may be on many of your minds as attendees is there really XR developments, and endeavors going on locally, regionally, internationally? I mean, other than a good old Google search or YouTube, what is actually happening, right? Or is going to happen, or what are the opportunities out there? So with that, maybe share a little bit about the fact that XR is advancing or making quite a bit of traction in the enterprise space. Things like digital twin for training, recreating resource-intensive equipment that you couldn't otherwise buy because they're expensive. So I think the enterprise space is really where it's sort of going places in terms of where XR is, excluding games, of course. And just to boggle your mind a little bit more, throw in this slide from IMDA's report about how enterprise users, in the IMAI space, can see that many different industries are benefiting or picking this up in the XR development side, be it from AR, VR, MR, and so on and so forth. But I think that's one thing to take note of. But the more important thing is why we gathered here today is to really look at XR in terms of arts, culture, heritage, and what else. So I think that's the, I guess, challenging part, because in a sense, it is quite hard to find a go-to resource to ask these kind of questions. And more so for the artists that are here in our midst, how do you get started? So what is out there, and what is a good reference, or what is a good inspiration? So let me just paint a quick overview. We really wanted to explore this space, and that's why we applied for the Noise Grant in 2019 and got this grant from NAC to conduct, a physical in-person event at Scape, where the Dude is one of our mentors. And we really saw the birth of many artists that emerged from there as well. Many of them actually haven't actually done any XR art piece. And this was their first. Some of them have actually gone off to create their own careers as well. And they started their own thing as well. So we're very excited and happy to see this as a sort of like launch pad, so to speak, for many of the artists. But more importantly, we are also very honored and pleased to work with National Heritage Board and Gervais, especially for some of the DigiMuse programs. We have done Excavation in Time and a VR experience, and also a Circuit Breaker edition for some of the web VR campaigns that we've done since last year as well. So I think in the art side, locally, there are stuff going on, and I'll reserve more of this for the other artists to talk about, which is so much more than what I have shared here. But maybe if we take a step back and check out the game side, actually, did you all know that Mixed Drums is a local developer that has done VR games like Sorrento, has done very, very well. So well that they even went into a PS version as well. So I think in the current landscapes, there are entities, that have been doing different things in different space regarding XR. And these are some of the things to shout out or to look to as our inspiration. But I mean, this part of the world is one thing. The rest of the world is that it's easy to Google for them as anything else. So let me just, do a deep dive into these particular few slides and slow down and sort of bring you through some of the observations that I've been seeing. No doubt by now, many of you would have understood things like, VR cinema, tilt brush, and even know that there's a tilt brush artist in resident, right? Many tilt brush artists around the world. So this already picked up speed and probably have gone on to do, what they need to do in terms of starting artists' first steps journey. But more importantly, in the XR space, when it comes to different arts and cultural experiences and installations, as early as 2017, 2018, there has been things like VR theater with Draw Me Closer, for example, where the actors put on headsets and they appear on stage and they see each other, as virtual outlines, and basically that is projected onto a screen for audiences. And even Blackout that happened, kicked off the Scatter entity in the US, whereby you put on a headset and you can sort of hear the minds and thoughts of subway commuters as you walk among them, and a whole bunch of other, of these XR experiences from many years ago. So actually, the development of such installations has really started since then. And if it has started since then, you know that moving forward since the past few years, it can only get better and more widespread. So needless to say, when it comes to distribution, one of the things that is really happening is to introduce you guys to this entity called the Museum of Other Realities, which exists as something you can download on Steam, right? And as you know, Steam you can access via your PC and browser, and also because it's Steam, there's also a VR feature as well. So if you do happen to have a headset, you can also check them out as well, okay? But more importantly, because of this entity that's online with the pandemic and how people are trying to migrate their physical event to the online space, you see, entities like Cannes using Museum of Other Realities to launch the event, which has seen, of course, restriction of visitors that would otherwise flock to Cannes for the event. And with that, they started a whole new spectrum of different virtual, online, digital kind of experiences, from immersive arcade, to XR and so on and so forth. I had a chance to actually be part of Cannes XR last year as a finalist, as a participant actually, and to see how that scope is. It was an open call for everybody in the world. Then we shortlisted to 10. We were part of the 10 of the international selection, and then they picked one with a runner-up. So there was this process that was really exciting in the fact that your voice, can still be heard in such an international platform. And never mind that we didn't get first, but new ties were formed, new explorations, and of course, new experiences and portfolios from there. So this was quite interesting, and I really, inspire and hope to encourage all of you to keep an eye out for this. But more importantly, I think we cannot ignore the fact that another form of these XR/digital venues or platforms out there have been flooding our scenes, and I am sure all of you would have seen them in your social media feeds, at some point in time. But the question is, they are actually making more traction than we could possibly imagine. Never mind about Fortnite concerts, never mind about events in Animal Crossing, but artists have now locked into specific game platforms and looking to thrive within that platform because they have a very large pool of audience for their works within that platform. And right now, there is even things like I'm a Roblox artist as an official title, which I guess never existed a year ago. But once you say you're a Roblox artist, you suddenly have international acclaim, which is, I think it's very exciting to understand where this is coming from. And within Roblox artists, there's also many so-called subdomains. you are an artist for just the avatars or the environments, or you're porting in your works into the platform. So I think some of these are really exciting explorations, and I guess no excuse for anyone not to try them out, even as a gamer to artist or artist to game. And then the whole structure then becomes a little bit more fluid between what is digital. You see now digital avatars in your theater performance, bridging between virtual and physical. And then with crypto coming in and crypto art and NFTs, then suddenly the whole spectrum becomes something, that has been in the publications like New York Times. Are we in the metaverse? So the metaverse is not a term that is new, of course, but with the digital bridge, and connections, really merging and becoming and blending very, very thinly across each of these technologies, then you become to wonder, if I'm playing a game which has a VR capability, somebody else with a VR headset can also experience this. How else are we not being able to transcend that digital realm so that everybody can experience my content in different ways? So I think that is an exciting proposition to look at, and looking at how some of these creative works can be stretched out and be exploited out in terms of XR, game art, virtual beings, worlds, crypto art. And what's number 5? Are you going to be creating a hybrid? So is that something that's possible as well? So I think these are really exciting times for you to have the look. And as we finally take the step back in terms of just an overview of what's happening internationally, and seeing how some of these international exposures is going to help consumers understand the digital realm better, so that we as artists, when we create something, will not be too alien to them because they would have tried it commercially. If somebody who is a Netflix fan or user tried VR and suddenly stumble onto your VR work, it won't be such a disconnect anymore. So I think the good thing about some of these international efforts out there, be it first virtual art museum to Netflix getting into VR, really helps the consumers, which is also otherwise your audience, come into the idea of what the metaverse is, and very, very likely explore your works and create an entire new venue and platform for you to explore. So I think, I hope that is, there's so much more to talk about, I really hope that enables me to just maybe give a sight, or such maybe a teaser, right, to what's in it to come. But for me, I'm more excited at the fact that we are really living in such a exciting new place, be it thanks to the pandemic or not, that we are able to use a lot of these digital channels to not only create new works, but to also appreciate and to see other artists in the same space. Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you, Lionel, for shedding light on how XR has certainly come a long way, and the rise of platforms plays a crucial role in this process as well. Many of you have played Pokemon Go, which was built in Unity, and as industries seek to digitalize, we are pleased to have Yiren Business Development and Education from Unity Technologies to share about the present and the future of XR technology. I shall now pass the time over to Yiren.
One second, let me just share my screen. Yes. Sorry, there's a bit of latency. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Right. Thanks everyone for taking the time to join us today. Thanks to YLab as well for giving us the opportunity to share. I'm Yiren. Nice to meet everybody. I handle business development as well as education for Unity Technologies here in Southeast Asia. So for those of you who are unaware, Unity is basically a game engine software. We were born in gaming, and yeah, we have been seeing some very interesting times with the development of new platforms going ahead, such as the virtual reality platform, augmented reality, mixed reality, and a whole manner of devices on all these different, I guess, methods of generating, creating, displaying content. And yeah, today I'll be basically looking to share some interesting stats we have seen across industries using immersive technologies, specifically for XR. and explore how we are trying to bring more tools to enable creators in the XR space. So what we see today is that the world is rapidly changing around us. COVID, honestly speaking, was just one of many big steps the world has been making towards a more digitalized landscape. And with recent advancements in technology, especially in terms of data visualization and more, economies and industries have been finding ways to evolve, to create and build faster, cheaper, and better, in addition to creating and leveraging these new technologies such as XR to respond better to a more competitive market. It's important, of course, to see how much the world is changing. In this sense, we see content much like how it converted from print to the radio and from radio to TV. We are seeing creativity and technology starting to converge on all manner of new ways of displaying and interacting with content. XR, of course, is a huge part of this discussion. And yeah, we see unlimited opportunities basically in almost every industry imaginable today.
Aaron,
Yep.
could you maybe try to reshare your screen?
Reshare. Let me stop and reshare. Once again. Okay, let's try it again. Can you see my slides now? No, no slides. Give me 1 second. So, stop share. Okay, go. Let's try again. All right, does it work now? Yeah. Sorry, I can't see the chat. So sorry guys. Yeah, but basically like what we are sharing, right? It's important that we see how far the world is changing today, and yeah, we are seeing quite a few opportunities, all manner of industries, ranging from healthcare to automotive space, etc. Just so that we can set the terminology right. From what we understand here at Unity, XR generally refers to X, where X refers to both virtual, to all, right? All sorts of realities such as virtual, augmented, and merged. Where virtual reality platforms are basically referred to a completely digital environment, where usually they tend to be fairly singular in nature. You don't see, you don't experience the outside reality. You're in a fully enclosed environment, and you basically have no sense of the real world whatsoever. Augmented reality is what we most commonly see in smartphones and other more straightforward, I would say, AR devices. Like I think Epson has smart glasses, for example, where basically you just overlay digital information on top of the real world. You are primarily present, and it's just that the existing experience is enhanced by virtual details. And what we are seeing is something pretty popular, but not so much, hasn't reached, I guess, the consumer space, is merged or mixed reality, where both the real and virtual environment are intertwined. You can see experiences like this on the HoloLens or Magic Leap, primarily because they have things like depth sensors, LiDAR, in order to better merge and allow your virtual creations, I guess, to interact with real life space. So for instance, you might see this in the way of object occlusion, where maybe a small Pokemon would be hiding behind a sofa. So the software, based on the sensor information, is able to know, okay, this is the obstacle based on where the user's position. He's not going to be able to see maybe the bottom half of the object. So from the original space in gaming, like Lionel mentioned, gaming is often seen as, I guess, the start, right, of a lot of new technologies being trialed. And of course, XR is just one of them, where initially, we came up with virtual reality back all the way in the 90s with the Virtual Boy, all the way to the convenient consumerized headsets that we see today. Primarily, I would say virtual reality experiences were primarily designed for entertainment in mind. But that being said, we are seeing a huge number of other industries starting to adopt these sort of immersive technologies in their work, ranging from training to sales and marketing, just basically better experiences overall. So originally what we saw as perhaps relatively separate and siloed industries We see real-time 3D as well as XR potentially starting to bring all these various industries together, and hence, of course, bring in opportunities that are very transferable between them. So, for example, while in the past you may just be working as a simple game developer, a construction company might be interested to hire you to maybe, let's say, build out a digital twin of their latest building. And there's a lot of transferability, I would say, of skills. Artists are required in every industry: programmers, developers, UI, UX artists. Of course, you need program managers, project managers to lead them. It's a very interesting time to be in, basically. So for what we see as well, there are actually quite a number of use cases that we have observed for VR and AR specifically. In 2025, of course, while we observe that for now, the majority of cases tend to still be in enterprise and public sector, there is quite a large likelihood that this area will continue to grow as the technology continues to mature. One example, of course, is for enterprise augmented reality cases, using hopefully more affordable hardware, like cheaper versions of HoloLens, for example, better sensors, better cameras on board, better processing power. Of course, the gaming industry and the entertainment industry continues to be massive for VR and AR applications. The number of VR games on Steam grows day by day, with breakout hits such as Sirento, like Lionel mentioned, Beat Saber, which can even bring typical VR experiences, not just for the home, but even for arcade experiences as well. So overall, this is a very quick look as to what we see, how XR will impact the landscape in both today, in the next few years, ranging from purely entertainment-based experiences, ranging from games, to use cases that tend to have a bit more utility, right? Ranging from, let's say, fashion trials, right? Being able to try out shoes in augmented reality, even to VR and AR training, which all these are already present today. What we see, hopefully, in the subsequent years is that with new technology, such as 5G coming up, it potentially allows for greater engagement. Experiences will no longer be as limited to single-player solo experiences. You are going to be able to see multiplayer interactive experiences. For consumers as well, you will also be able to leverage based on 5G, right? That influx of information to be able to have a more effective search, location-based ads, for example, and even more robust features for enterprise, such as spatially aware augmented reality training and more. And of course, in the future, there's a bit of a long reach, but of one huge area that we are seeing growing popularity, partly because of COVID as well, is the possibility of large-scale live events, truly connected via maybe viewing complex AR information, such as data overlays of games, sports, concerts, etc. I don't know if you've seen, there are a few dystopian-ish videos of ads infiltrating our real life as well for omnichannel consumer market, and of course even for cars. So today we currently see fairly rudimentary heads-up displays, but in the future, who knows? You might have combined self-driving vehicles, you might have pretty robust entertainment systems, better tools to help drivers, etc. Yeah, so all in all, we see quite a few interesting use cases, right? Ranging from automotive space, where Audi, for example, allows multiple different employees around the world to work together in the same virtual room, to areas, for example, in healthcare, where doctors are able to perhaps even visualize, right, where the cuts are supposed to take place even before they have opened up the patient. And even for cars, right, for Volvo, they are actually, for example, trialing, in this case with Vajo, a pass-through XR headset, to in fact trial stress test their safety systems, right, having obstacles appear in front of drivers, validate directions in an actual real environment. And one huge area, lastly, that I wanted to bring up is in the space of pre-visualization, with films such as Ready Player One or The Lion King. The way how we directors pre-shoot or visualize that content is, we feel, is definitely going to be revolutionized with the ability to very quickly create good enough content, basically. And perhaps, who knows, you may even see entire films shot in virtual reality in the future. All in all, what we see today is that immersive technologies XR are poised to really change the way we live in, just like how TV as well as print, radio, all respectively revolutionize the eras they appeared in. And yeah, we are really looking forward to this in the future. And I hope you enjoy the rest of this panel session. Thank you.
Evidently, using new technologies is not without its challenges, as what I've just experienced, as we will learn from upcoming speaker. So I would like to invite Gervais, Deputy Director of Organizational Design and Innovation from the National Heritage Board, to zoom in on how cultural institutions can leverage XR. Gervais, the screen is all yours.
Hi. All right. Thanks everyone for having me. So I think it's been enlightening already, just hearing to the two previous speakers and Kevin talk about it. So maybe just a quick intro. So I'm with the National Heritage Board, and today I'm gonna share just some thoughts in terms of how cultural institutions have been experimenting, adopting, and prototyping with XR. So what you see here in this image actually is something that we kind of introduced at the National Museum of Singapore in 2020. This was a VR-based installation that we kind of presented with a New Zealand company, Good Company Arts. It's called Astrolabe, and kind of it blends a notion of a physical space with a digital art installation projector onto the walls and onto the screens. But users are also asked to put on a VR headset and kind of experience the dance and the environment in VR as well. So it's a kind of an interesting project that we did back then to look at this whole notion of hybrid experiences for museums. So why are museums looking at this? And essentially, if you really think about it, museums are all about extended realities. I mean, have always been about storytelling, invoking your imagination, or working on creativity, art, exploration, discovery, learning. And I mean, you can almost kind of apply this definition really to extended realities, because what we are trying to do is essentially to extend your mind space to kind of get you to think, right, about things which you may not have physically experienced, but you have a notional kind of experience of it. And in so doing, I think we're essentially trying to bridge the connection between individuals, between experiences across, I guess, in a way, across mediums, across time. And it's not new. I mean, many of you would have been familiar with some of these. So Tron, I think back in 1982, I think really one of the more kind of popular culture kind of introduction to what extended realities can be. And this is where essentially the players were physically, well, not physically, but transported into a game environment, and then kind of the entire movie was premised on that. And this obviously, is pretty much of a cult experience, but more kind of popular, I guess, or more familiar would be The Matrix. I think went through many different sequels and series, and essentially it refers to about the same, right? It's really plugging your head into the mind jack, I think, and kind of really living an entire alternate dystopian reality, and bridging the physical and the mental. But essentially, these Matrix, for instance, right, also kind of hints at a very dystopian view of how technology can be adapted or adopted. And I think these create a certain amount of apprehension to visitors as well, to people, in terms of, hey, so where is this technology taking us, right? Where is extended reality bringing us? So for museums specifically, I think we have also been kind of playing around, in terms of storytelling. So as we move to understand how popular culture is perceived, the use of technology, the use of such mediums. We have also been, of course, playing around a little bit. Back in 2011, I think that was where we had the first AR experience with the ACM, Terracotta Warriors. And I think the Terracotta exhibition was held in Singapore at the Asian Civilizations Museum. And back then, I think we were the first to introduce this particular feature in terms of using augmented reality to add on to the experiences that people might have to bring the Terracotta Warrior to life, right? We embarked on something in 2017 as well. I think this is where we started to see the use of augmented reality coming a lot kind of closer. And in fact, this is more akin to mixed reality. So what we did was we kind of converted the image files from our old kind of records of photography based on the National Museum Rotunda back in the 1950s, and we recreated that in AR. So visitors would have been able to go on an architectural tour, make use of the Tango devices, and kind of really see the space as what it used to be in the 1950s. So this was recreated. Right. So you can see, I think this pretty much gave, once again, a bit more of a hybrid experience, because if you think about it, museums want visitors to visit, right? You don't want, predominantly want them to just have a virtual experience. We want them to see meaning, and how can the technology then add value, really to their experience when they're with us at the museum. So things like that, I think, add a bit of contextual information that may not have been possible and may not have been as evident, through traditional media. Right. So for those of you who are wondering why a tiger is there, I think the National Museum of Singapore used to be a natural history museum. So we had a large natural history collection. Lionel, I think he shared earlier, I think excavation through time, this was something we did as part of DigiMuse. I won't talk too much about DigiMuse, but essentially it was a program that we kind of started in 2017 that looked at really kind of encouraging conversations between museums, arts, culture, and technologists. So we brought in a good variety of kind of international projects, but at the same time, I think the focus was really about how can we encourage and seed local projects. And I think we supported about 10 projects in our initial open call, of which I think Lionel was one of them, who came in with excavation through time, which essentially kind of replicated an archaeological dig and got visitors to kind of get their hands dirty almost, put on the VR headsets and with the tools, with haptic components, to really get their hands into an archaeological bit and discover the artifacts and objects. So I'm glad to say that I think it was really well received and gave us a really good sense of what a meaningful use of VR might be for museums. Similarly, I think we had another project that made use of HoloLens. This was Project Insight, and what this does is it brought people into the minds of the conservators, right? So as they're looking at a particular painting, what is the process of restoring that painting? When you apply different views, X-ray views, UV views, you're able to see the defects that were inherent in the painting, and in fact get your hands into it to kind of make use of the tools to restore the painting yourself. So I think this was really, once again, a meaningful use of the tech to allow visitors to really appreciate the conservation process rather than just looking at the painting and think, oh yeah, no, it's a nice painting. But beyond that, it's great to know that there are hundreds of hours of work that went into restoring the painting before it's put on display. So just as a very broad sharing as well, I think since between that time and now, obviously I've missed a lot along the way, but this gives you a quick capture of some of the VR adoption that's been taking place. This is taken from a Museum Next article, which I thought presented some of the really interesting ones. So the Kramer Museum kind of presented 74 Dutch and Flemish masterpieces in a VR. So it's a VR museum. So I met with the Kramer guys, and they said that, yeah, it kind of just got too expensive to build a physical museum. So they decided to do really, really good high resolution scans of the masterpieces in their collection and made it completely available on VR, right? And it's a paid model as well. So that was an interesting adoption. The Tate Modern has adopted it in terms of looking at a retrospective, so transporting visitors into an artist studio in VR. The Peterson Automotive Museum recreated a Ford GT40, so you can see, essentially not just how the automobile looks like today, but you can look under the hood, and see, how the engine functions and all that. So once again, allowing people to view things which they would not be able to. And many, many other examples. One other interesting one I just want to highlight is the Smithsonian Institute. They actually had this really groundbreaking exhibition, No Spectators, The Art of Burning Man, where they introduced the artworks from Burning Man across the city, and they made use of VR, social VR as well, to kind of in fact guide people along on these tours as well. Yeah, so that was really interesting, and many, many more that we see. Recent developments that kind of hints that this is actually not just a fad. It's really something that the art world is taking seriously. In July 2020, Art Newspaper set up an XR panel, essentially in response to the growing need to consider XR art as an integral part of their review, in terms of how they want to report on such developments. For many museums, conversations around XR are actually shifting away from why do we need it to what can we do and how can we do it meaningfully, right? How can we, in fact, even make AR art valuable? How can we kind of limit the circulation of it? What's the best XR medium for our needs? Closer to home, I think just last month, Art Science Museum launched a new VR gallery, right? And if you look at it really, I mean, 360 VR tours is now the norm, right? So I mean, it's not there are really different look at it, but really 360 VR, 360 capture of our galleries are making available online, but also virtual tours. It's really now a norm. There are more than 75 museums on a simple listing that actually shows them having an experience like that, right? Immersive VR really is a natural complement to kind of greater access and immersive storytelling experiences. So the V&A, a very kind of a traditional design art museum in London, has actually adopted it for a curious Alice VR experience, and showing how VR can be used really immersively to add on to the storytelling experience as well. Where we see the trend moving is that web AR seems to be almost like a default second screen in terms of how developments are panning out. So what you see here are essentially just some basic web AR experiences that we have been playing around with. So web AR, basically you don't need to download an app. You just scan, a web browser pops up. And the AR experiences is kind of interspersed into the space that you're in, or you can view the object as is. So this kind of removes the barriers in terms of app downloads, but also making it easy for people to kind of present the content. And I think Kevin mentioned, I think I wouldn't go too much into this. We're really in the piloting experimentation stage. So we're working with a company called RefMotion, I think, on a pilot to develop digital twin experiences. And this you can see is a digital twin model of the Kampong Glam area. And what we are trying to do is essentially looking at, hey, this notion of virtual exploration, or are you able to create an avatar, move around this precinct, gain kind of almost like run an event from this space. So this you can see is a rather nice model of the Sultan Mosque in the Kampong Glam area. And really, looking at what's the benefit and what's the value of such virtual platforms to allow us to kind of engage and socialize almost, right? And certainly, what can be the benefit to retail as well. Yeah. So where do we go from here? This is my last slide. So I think for museums and cultural institutions, it's important to think about this. We shouldn't be chasing the next big tech, but really recognize that the current tech is in the maturation stage, right? And it really just needs great content and storytelling to go with it. And we must invest time and effort to do that. Each technology, whether it's AR, VR, MR, is its own medium and has its own purpose. And I think it's important to identify and align what works best for your needs. And lastly, I think it's important to build a solid base of users and make it accessible. So you have the user base to test it. You have the capacity to understand what it means to implement this. Yeah. And with that, I thank you. That will be my last slide. And look forward to the rest of the sessions.
Perhaps as with any masterpiece that defines a genre, to reimagine an established sector requires consistent effort that eventually tips the balance. We hope that this first half of sharing has given you a broad and comprehensive overview of the landscape. So thank you to all of our speakers for an exciting start. We will now take a 5 minutes break. Please leave us your comments and questions on Discord so we can continue to chat more about this space together. After the break, we will learn from artists who are forerunners in experimenting with all these different arts and address the questions raised. Thank you, everyone. everyone, and welcome back. This is Ernie, your host for YLab's XR event. Earlier on, we heard about the use of XR on an organizational scale from various industry players. But how about individuals and creatives? No doubt, artists are also affected by the pandemic. So how are they adapting? This is what we will find out and more. Remember to post your thoughts and questions on the Discord Extended Reality channel. You can also post them on YouTube. Now we'll take a look from time to time so that we can address them during our Q&A segment at the end. Now, I'm pleased to first invite Debbie, visual artist and technologist, to share about her initial foray into XR technologies. Debbie, please.
Hello, give me a second to share my screen. Okay, got to full screen it now. Give it a moment to load. Okay, hi everybody, and thank you. I want to thank YLab for inviting me today. Maybe a quick intro to myself. My name is Debbie Ding, and I've been actively producing work as an artist for over 10 years. And I usually describe myself as an artist and technologist because finding the right visual technology to present work is also pretty important to me. And as an artist, I worked on interactive installations using Kinet, pulse laser, holography, and also video works that were actually very tediously made WebGL animations. And most recently, this kind of virtual game worlds. And in my previous role as a commercial designer, I also worked in UI, UX, and interactive front-end kind of development work. So some of my design background has come in handy. I often say that I use the skills and tools that I have in design to produce my art. And I also want to confess that I was a little hesitant at first when Ernie asked me to do this talk, because I don't normally describe myself as someone working in extended reality per se. I'm also not a conventional game developer, and I haven't shipped a game in the conventional sense at all, you know, because I published my work so far as video works, but it's also not a video. I'm not a filmmaker only. So I suppose what I can share with you today is my experience and also maybe the challenges of getting into this kind of world building from the perspective of someone who started off as a writer, you know, and someone with a BA in literature, not exactly technically trained, you know. I myself am also a full-time educator, and I also have a young baby. So I'll also talk a bit about the challenges of time management for this kind of projects. Okay, let me go to the next slide. So I also like to show this diagram, which helps to normally explain the frame through which I make my work. So this is like the futurist cone, you know, which is often used by designers and futurists to explain how they make speculative work. You know, we know that there are many kinds of possible futures, and some are more preposterous, and some of them are more plausible, you know, and it's a way for us to think of the world as a cone of possibilities. You know, right now, if we just talked about the future, you know, but actually there is a way of kind of thinking and kind of opening up this cone of possibilities to design something on different parts of this, you know, cone. For example, whether it is something that is quite likely to happen, or things that we know is preposterous but might be something we wish for. So, you know, all this seeing the code also is a way to think of how even the past is something that when we look back into it, the possible histories that we can imagine is only limited by our imagination. And maybe to speak of my work in very practical terms, in the beginning, I drew a lot of maps, and the maps look like these. This is a work I called Green Syntax, which I did a lot of maps, you know, hand drawn. This is all digitally drawn. I was kind of using that language at the time, that visual language, because what I was familiar at the time was 2D illustration. I also created a number of other installation works, also all relating to mapping. So I used the Kinet to actually make these kind of, they're still actually kind of 2D maps. What you see here essentially. So the audience plays in this 2D map. And also, you know, things were kind of on the 2D plane for me. You know, I collected a lot of stories. Collecting stories and narratives was a big thing for me. I really liked this idea of collecting both the real and the fake stories from the public about the Singapore River, archiving them together without telling, you know, exactly which is real or fake, as if to kind of open up the kind of myth, you know. So these are the different images of the work I made, which is called Here the River Lies. So a lot of these have a lot of text as well. I was very interested in the kind of stories that I could collect. I could also imagine or visualize. So the picture you see here is from a recent exhibition that gets a little close on last Sunday. That's actually the Wiki Clicky exhibition that was by the Singapore Art Museum. It was inside the National Gallery's basement. So it's kind of funny because I described myself in the beginning as an artist and technologist. And of course, what you see here is a very text-based work. And I think the curators I worked with, Mustafa, he asked me to think also about the kind of source material, of where my work comes from. And I if you ask me that, I would definitely say that kind of narratives and the storytelling are my source material, and still is even now, although I've moved on to kind of other mediums, other kind of mediums to produce my work, from this kind of 2D stuff to also the 3D world building. So I thought I'll share a little bit with this diagram I made of my own personal learning journey. So, I think it's taken me, when I look back, I also think it's taken me quite a lot of years to learn all these things. I started off teaching myself design, and then working in Flash, a lot of Flash. Now Flash is dead already. So the technology really moves on really fast. And then over the years, I was quite interested in these kind of like using scripting, but I always felt something was lost. I couldn't actually sculpt the 3D thing myself. I think when I did my master's, which was at RCA, they don't really teach you anything in design when you do a master's in design. I thought they would, but actually it's more about the theory of it. But I realized how much I actually hadn't mastered this kind of 3D design skills. So I decided that I would teach myself by doing one Blender render a day, and also slowly learning how to put it together with Unity, because I saw that also finding something that I could put everything together like I used to in Flash. So this is actually how I started, by just copying stuff, finding a YouTube video I liked and then trying to copy it, spending a day for each render, so they were really fast things. I see a picture I like in a journal, try to copy it. This is actually a photo where I try to make a render out of it. Seeing a photo a friend sends me of a rubber band, making it into a thing. So it kind of trying to find ways to teach myself how to do 3D modeling over the years, and also trying to use it in the work I make. So this is a work I produced that was it's actually produced with an optics lab in Lithuania, Kiola. So they actually we worked to produce this pulse laser holography. It's just a plate, but basically you can see an image in the holographic plane behind the image plane. So really the item itself is produced using digital files in the background. So actually I also did a lot of 3D rendering for it. It's a bit like making a very strange film. Producing prints that look like this. Also teaching myself through lots of, these are not even projects, these are just screenshots of some terrible experiments I made along the way, learning, trying to learn it also. And I think also now with things like the iPad, it's really easy to do the photogrammetry, or I actually quite like this kind of broken kind of look as well, of all this scans. Obviously I can do it really nicely as well, but this kind of look also appeals to me. So I want to show you this picture of the Wiki Clicky exhibition, because when we were doing it, I wanted to run some events, actually talks and different kind of things in the space. But there was the heightened phase 2 that occurred, and locked, basically like almost, we couldn't actually run these kind of events. And what I thought of is that, since I was replaying so much of this, I ended up building a version where I thought I could just run my events. I could do it kind of a live stream and talk to people about my work while I was in there. So, producing a version of it as a sort of live gameplay stream. So, this is a picture from it, and let me show you a little bit. So it really enabled me to kind of like even put a table, and then, instead of having an artist talk where I had to be, it had to be, we all had to be in person, they could come and actually see, see, for example, the data behind my work. We could walk around, and I could talk about it. If they want to talk about something, I could walk over to it and show people about different parts of this exhibition. It's a bit like another way of showing a work, but also producing a whole world. If I can produce this, why not anything really? So this is the exhibition. I made the TVs a bit bigger than they originally were. That's the only difference from the real exhibition. Let me go to the next slide. So I also produced other film works. This one was a work called The Legend of Debbie, which was commissioned by the Asian Film Archive for State of Motion in January this year. So this is also, playing around with it, trying to translate kind of all the things I've made into virtual worlds. What would they look like if I had to make them in the 3D space? Because previously I was kind of like translating my work from whatever I could, from memory into a 2D map. So why not into something? What if I made it into 3D? Playing around these spaces, also making more crazy looking things, and also this other work I want to share with you is actually called Void. So I used a lot of the scans that I made of the HDB void decks, because I shuttle between my parents' house and my house to with my baby, because my parents was taking care of my baby. So I spent a lot of time at these void decks where I'm actually like in the middle of the night. I feel like it's a journey between these two places. So it was a way of kind of visualizing that space for me as well. And I'll show you a little video, a short trailer for it. Okay. These are some of the journeys through the void deck. Okay, and go to the next slide. And kind of also thinking of formats where I could talk about things. There was this there's another work I've been working on that I hope to release later this month as a downloadable, called Bread and Butter in the Field of Dreams, based off this I think in 2013 there was this ACES survey, kind of an arts employment survey by NAC. It was evocatively titled that, asking people how they make a living in the arts. So there was this this sort of game I made, which is a kind of a fake shop. Everything that I made in the last 10 years translated into fictional versions, commercial versions, or not commercial versions of themselves, other products, So I'll show you a little video of it. So this is the shop of the workshop, of the space. So it's a shop of PDF books and all the other objects that I have I'm supposed to have made over the years. A bunker, a bread shop with all these bread stories and puns. So a whole world, so it's kind of a way to also tell a story in a different way. And we go. I also thought I should share a little bit, which is also, I take a long time also to calculate how long it takes for me to do stuff. Like I mentioned, I work full-time, actually I teach full-time, but I also try to carve out time to produce work on my own, also learn new things. So, this is actually how long it took me to make that project, the Field of Dreams prototype, in total. Keeping tabs also gives me a sense of of what I can improve or how I can improve it, because I don't think it's not only about making a game that is just as an artwork, but really I want to, even though I'm not a game developer per se, I want to make something technically proficient still, and that still takes time to learn the skill, and also to realize that vision, because if I'm not a master of all the different tools of the world building, how can I actually design that world? It's I guess you're almost required to have quite a wide skill set to have a firm handle on both the art and also the technology in order to understand how to build it. So I also just put a few slides here about time management. So my own thing is that I spend a lot of time. How I actually manage to carve out time in my day also to pick up these things is actually thinking about time management, and also spending quite a lot of time learning the skills over time. Keeping a lot of notes. I have a wiki where I used to keep all my notes, all my scripts and whatever, all kind of bits. I also have spreadsheets where I keep notes or tracks on my project. And I also try to think of it as that there is no 0 day. Even a lot of these projects take momentum. They maybe once you stop working on it, you don't know where it's at anymore. So I try to make sure every day, even if I have a very long day, like I teach 9 to 6, I try to make sure I spend at least 5 minutes on a project that I'm working on, so that I can progress and I can still feel like I'm connected to this rather complicated project sometimes. Yeah. Because I'm like a one-person development team. Yep. So yes, so that's the last slide of me. So if you're, thanks so much for listening. I hope it was useful. Some things if you're interested, you can also look for my website or drop me an email. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Debbie, for the candid sharing and for sharing with us tips for how to Debbie. I've always wondered what's the 0448 a.m. in your email ID. I guess that's the time that you wake up.
Maybe it is. It is the time I wake up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how transiting from text and virtual worlds will be impacted by the world's move from 4G to 5G as well, and perhaps that could be food for thought for a future session. Now I'm pleased to have Eugene, founder of Dude Studios and Mind Palace, who is presently at the intersections of art, tech, and startups, to share his journey with you. I shall now hand the time over to Eugene.
Hey, hello. I'm Eugene, so I do. I'm a tech artist, also like Debbie. Fun fact: Debbie was my teacher in NTU years ago. I think 2011 was it, Debbie? Yeah, 2011. She taught one module, very fun module. Learned a lot, and now I have founded two companies, two entities, which is really just me and my guys just trying to run the show for both the companies. So it's actually just like legally, there are two companies for legal reasons, but it's the same people. So who are we? We are Creative Tech Studio. We do VR, AR, Instagram filters lately, interactive installations and websites. So we are also official Facebook Spark AR partners, which means that we are very good at it and officially recognized. Spark AR, if you don't know, is the AR engine tool that is used to create filters. Filters are those like Instagram filters, but they are also called augmented reality. They are also known as augmented reality. So what do we do? How I see is we solve problems. Oh. You don't hear the sound, I think it might be too loud. So this, we solve problems. So clients usually come to us with an idea that no one has done before. And on such a new platform like Spark AR or Unity is not new anymore. Unity has been around for ages. On new platforms like Spark AR, there are not many people who have done stuff on it. So pretty much whatever they want to do has not been done before. So we are here to come up with solutions to fix those problems. So this one was for Netflix. So it is essentially art and tech. So like Debbie said just now, if you have a lot of art, but you don't know how to do the tools, you don't know how to use the things, you are essentially like pretty much stuck there, like with the idea. You are stuck as a dreamer with a lot of things to say, but you don't know how to do it. So yes, it takes a lot of time to go and master the program. So that's how I started out. That's how I started out actually, is with this photo that I shot when I was still in school that went viral when I was still in school. Then that's how I entered into the art world. So tech, I do lots of coding. I do 3D animation. I did 3D animation in poly. So I'm pretty much very technically proficient in a lot of things. So I am good at learning things that I've not done before, and I'm good at learning it quickly. So I guess that is how I start to do like a lot of things. And whenever I can't figure out how to do things, I get into this rage mode. I get super angry and then at myself actually to like try to figure it out, because for something that I already saw that is possible with another software, and then I keep like hitting myself like, why can't I do it, until I figure it out. So when I finally figure it out, then that's when the project is finished, and then I move on to the next one. So when you want to do things that no one has done before, I find that you really have to go at it without fear. There is a chance for you to like, when you meet obstacles and then like, this thing cannot be done because the technology is not there yet. But there's always a way to find a little workaround to try to make it work. Whether it's using another tool, mixing and matching a few things, you have to go at it without fear, because the moment you have like a little bit of doubt, then you'll be like, I can't do this, and then you'll be like, give up already. For some people, solving problems might take them longer than others. For people like me who have been solving problems forever, I find that usually it takes me about a day or two to figure stuff out, and then get it into the project. At the beginning, it took me like with early projects with National Gallery, I gave myself like 6 months, or when making like things like this one for the Supreme Court. Funny story, when the Supreme Court called me up, and then I'll be like, oh shit, I'm dead, like because of all the art stuff that I do. Then but they actually wanted to do the virtual tour for a virtual tour for the Supreme Court. So I've never done an app before, but I kind of know how to do it. So for this one, it took me about 6 months or so, like to try to figure it out on and learn as I'm doing it. It's kind of fun. It's almost like they are paying you to learn stuff, but they have to trust that you can do it lah. And they have placed their trust in the right person, because I went to figure it out and do it. Then after that, we do stuff with the Kinect and try to make games, interactive games that show like technical proficiency. Just now, Debbie was talking about like technical proficiency. This example of the Kinect boxing game was a practice run for me because I had this idea of, oh, why don't we make like a boxing game with the Kinect, since we can detect the body movements. Then I go and search Microsoft, and it turns out they have their own kind of fighting games, but their kind of fighting game is they recognize you do themselves, the user doing a punch, and then the characters on the screen do their own very polished animation of a punch. Then I thought, hey, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why don't you just like get the character to do the exact thing that you are doing? So instead of like wishing Microsoft would do that, I went to like try it out myself, and it worked. So another one is taking inspiration from everywhere. I used to think like, oh, all your ideas need to be like super original. It needs to be, you cannot copy anything on. So for a long time, I found that very inhibiting because there are a lot of ideas like oh wait, my phone is blowing up. I don't know why this thing. Okay. So if you've seen this maze game from like ages ago, where it suddenly comes out and scares you, that's like part of my childhood trauma when I played this game long time ago. I wouldn't show you the actual game. Then right, if I had this kind of inhibition to like not to like copy works and draw inspiration, a lot of people, inspiration is also known as copying. A lot of people say that. If I had that kind of inhibition, I wouldn't be like making stuff like this. So this one, I kind of converted that mouse maze game into an Instagram filter where you use your nose to go through the game. So this one was kind of like a closure for me also, because of the trauma that it has caused me. So this one, it is supposed to scare you at level 3, but I made it such that you can complete level 3, and then I made 2 more levels after that. So it's like more closure for myself, but also whoever who plays this might have some closure from being scared long time ago. And if you scan that QR code, you can go and play also. Then art installations. So this one is at Sengkang General Hospital. They first got me to do this project in 2 years ago, at 2019, when the platform Spark AR wasn't like super established yet. Wait, now let me check my phone real quick. Okay, so they first got me to do it when it wasn't like super established. A lot of capabilities wasn't there. So they wanted it such that when you point your phone at the sculpture, different animations will come out. Then, yeah, different animations will come out from different angles. So at the time I used Spark AR, but 2 years later, I used Spark AR and 3 different filters for each angle for people to see the different effects. So this year, Spark AR launched a new capability where you can detect multiple images in one filter. So I refreshed I redid the filter again for free for Sengkang Hospital for free, and now within one filter you can scan the sculpture from all angles. You don't need to reopen a QR code, which is what we've done before. And now it works at night. Also, previously we had to put a caveat and say, oh, this thing might not work at night, might not work in different weathers, but now it can work in all weathers with a new capability that wasn't, I guess it wasn't meant to do something like that. That new capability was more like for multi-target tracking, but I used the multi-target tracking in a slightly different way and thought this worked quite well, very well actually. And then comes to surviving or done like commercial work also. These two is for Lego. So pretty straightforward. To do all this first, you need to like get the technical proficiency down. And then like, this one is for National Gallery behind the $50 note. There are two artworks that are in the possession of National Gallery, and then this is to show people like a little animated version of the artworks. So what Debbie said just now was time is the most precious one, because for all these projects, most of the time the bottleneck is me, because I'm the one putting it together. I'm the one like exploring the technology. You can save time by starting a business and like hiring people, but that in itself is a whole lot of problems also, because there's paperwork, CPF, taxes, and then all those applications like applications to go and bid for projects. Oh, I do not like doing that. And then a lot of people in the business world also take themselves too seriously, which is why I try not to call myself a businessman or entrepreneur. I don't like those. And then like recently, just yesterday, they launched this, fresh grads should see short-term contracts, internships as stepping stones, which is actually one of the problems that I've been getting. Like a lot of my hires, they come and join me 1-2 years, and then after that they leave. And then there's a lot of like loss for me, because every hire, right, that comes to works for me, they are actually getting a very good deal. I become their mentor. Sometimes I do the projects for them with my hand on the mouse, and I show them, okay, this is how you do it, this is how you do it. Because for something like so new, there isn't a university that has like a curriculum to teach this kind of thing. So pretty much you have to learn things on your own, figure it out, or you can join a company like me where I spend the time to go and teach you how to do it. But then after 1 year, you leave and treat me like a stepping stone, which is so terrible. And actually the Venn diagram is also a lion. So dude.sg. So that is my Instagram. You can go and check me out. Why am I dude.sg? Because I'm a dude and I'm from Singapore. I'm very proud that I'm from Singapore. And because the domain name was available, so I was very surprised that the domain name was available. I went to go and check out other one-worded.sg domains like good.sg, great.sg. Nobody took them. So at that time, this was 2010, 2011, nobody took them. So I did the most logical thing. I bought and got them all. So in 2013, I got artists like Debbie Ding was one of the artists who adopted my domains. You can see her artwork here, which is this pixelated lion there. And then and because I already had one foot in the art world, I went around galleries asking them, hey, do you want to show these web artwork? So the idea was to let artists around the world adopt my domains, and then they do whatever they want with it. And at the end, we have a show. And then like galleries were telling me that, oh, this is a great idea, but because I didn't have too much of a name also, that these works probably wouldn't sell and it will cost them a loss. So I decided to solve my own problems. And since I got gallery.sg, I also then I adopted it myself and made a virtual tour thing. So I wanted to recreate the whole gallery visiting experience where you could see the other people there also. So this was from the opening day, there were people, and then we went around clinking virtual glasses. And this was, long time ago. And this kind of virtual meetup thing was what I wanted to do for the elderly when I started doing these projects like that. Because like when they are living in a nursing home for whatever reasons, we want to be able to give them this way to socialize, escape, and live a meaningful life. So for one of these projects, we collaborated with Cycling Without Age, where we shot a virtual tours that they do around Singapore. And then because they couldn't bring them around Singapore anymore because of COVID, we shot the tours virtually, and then they brought the tours to them. This is another example where we work with Hawker Chan, and then he cooked the chicken rice in our virtual in 360, then we bring this virtual thing to the elderly. And then when they watch it, they can see him cook the chicken rice. And then when they take it off, the chicken rice is in front of them. While they are watching it, they can smell the chicken rice also, but sometimes they think that it's because the technology is so good that they can smell the chicken rice. But little do they know, we actually brought the chicken rice there. Then actually not because of COVID, but more because of the hygiene reasons, because when we were doing all this was 2019, and then the headsets get really gross super fast. You can try to clean them and as much as possible, but after a while it becomes like quite gross. Like even after I clean it and then I update the goggles myself, when I put it to my own face, my eyebrows start to itch. So if my eyebrows are itching, can you imagine the vulnerable people in the nursing homes having itchy eyebrows or like conjunctivitis or something like that? So I decided to bring not be bounded by that technology and create my own solution, which is to build this immersive, turn the whole room into the VR goggles and bring the immersiveness there now. So this is my latest project with Mind Palace, which is more of a charity thing. I burn money there. And then we have built two of these rooms already dedicated to these things. It comes with games also. And we are looking to build more. So that is me. I'm Dude.sg and Mind Palace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eugene. So if any of you have any ideas for how you want to architect, now you know who to talk to, and I hope that you will stay with him. And as technology makes possible not only new modes of expression, but also channels through which to build an audience, what does it take to break into the established order, so to speak? To find out more, we are also glad to have a friend from abroad join us. Christopher is based in the Philippines and a senior XR developer at Tinker Studio, who has seen his work go on to display at Sundance. Let's hear his story. Christopher, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm here to talk about, I'll try to make this as brief as possible. So I'm mostly going to be talking about the project I'm currently involved with, Tinker. But before that, I'm going to do a quick introduction about myself. So you can call me Toff. Actually, I think I'm the only speaker here that's not from Singapore. So I think I also should do a quick introduction about our community in the Philippines. So I'm one of the founders of one of the original founders of the virtual reality community in the Philippines called VR Philippines. So actually, before the pandemic, we were quite active doing meetups, hackathons. So actually, this was the last event that we did just before the pandemic. So this was, I think, January last year. So some of us are already wearing face masks here, but yeah, those were some of the efforts we were doing to really cultivate the content creator culture for in the Philippines. So during the pandemic, our community hasn't been that active, but there's still during the pandemic actually there's still been a rise of not only via virtual reality users and consumers in the Philippines, but a lot of new startups and a lot of new creators as well. So there. Most of my experiences in VR and AR is actually from the startup I co-founded since 2016. It's called VR Immersive Technology. So actually, it's not we're mostly catering to B2B applications. So not unlike Lionel. So we were developing we were exploring all kinds of solutions that involves virtual reality and augmented reality. Actually, so I'll just gonna be showing some of the stuff we did before. So actually, it has a wide range. So from games, so we did some VR activations in malls where we really wanted to excite people to pass time. So this was actually one of the first games we did before.
Hi everyone. So you're experiencing some technical difficulties right now with the one of the speakers. Maybe we can wait to get him online. Yeah, give us a few seconds to sort this out.
Hi everyone. Sorry if I got disconnected. So I'm just turning off my camera to have a more stable connection. But yeah, as I was introducing myself, so I'm not sure when was it got up, but yeah. So I'm just gonna repeat it quickly. So I'm a developer from the Philippines. So we have a community called VR Philippines. It's been established in 2015. I also had a startup called VR Immersive Technologies. Back starting from 2016 to 2020. So actually now what I'm mostly going to be talking about is the project that I've been involved now, which is called Tinker. So yeah, so before actually most of the projects that I've been involved with have been like business to business applications. So they kind of get a bit boring. So I thought I was looking for during the pandemic, I was looking for a project that I feel like I could really have more of an impact or an effect on, or create a more meaningful impact. So that is when I got connected with our director, Lou Ward, for Tinker. So Tinker is actually based on our director's uh, actual real life experience losing a loved one due to Alzheimer's disease. So so it was a really difficult time for him. So and he wanted to tell that story to the world, and he wanted to the primary goal was actually to really create more awareness for this really terrible ailment. Uh, So what we made was Tinker. So Tinker is a live interactive virtual reality experience about losing a loved one through Alzheimer's disease. So since last year, it's actually been part of the Oculus Launchpad. So Oculus Launchpad is Oculus's official incubation for creators, for new creators, and for new experiences. So we were lucky to receive a grant to continue to polish and improve our experience. And last February, actually, we also were able to launch our experience and premiere it during the Sundance Film Festival. So Sundance actually had a special section for immersive and emerging formats or mediums, so such as virtual and augmented reality. So we were one of the content that was showcased during that event and during that festival. So Tinker, yeah. So I'm just gonna show a bit short clip from the experience.
Of the ability to influence, manipulate, and control electronics is a special gift. To enter the mind of a machine is a rare talent. My grandfather was a tinkerer. He tinkered day and night on projects of wires and metal plates. He created machines to scan, to swivel, to suture together spaces past repair.
So there. So as I said, Tinker is actually a live experience. So how we utilize VR is not is a bit more unique than like the normal virtual reality experiences. You can see you can check out, because actually it's a bit more difficult logistics wise as well. So actually the format of Tinker is closer to live improv theater, and we're just utilizing the virtual reality environment as a digital workshop or as a digital stage. So usual formats or usual virtual reality uh, experience are actually like pre-scripted or pre-recorded or animated uh, with just interactable elements, but are the format that we chose for Tinker is actually more dynamic. So instead of having an NPC or a character that does pre-recorded animations, we actually have a character, which is the grandpa in this case, which who is the one who developed Alzheimer's, be played by a live actor. So in that that actually changes a lot in terms of like how dynamic the experience and the performance can be. So and the experience that one has within the story is really different from one another. So that's why using VR as a medium to have this kind of format is really evolving telling stories. So it's not just really storytelling, so it's actually something we can call story living, and that's actually what we really aim to accomplish, because our primary goal for this project is to really share how difficult it is to experience losing loved ones with Alzheimer's disease. So if we can have somebody really get a bit more intimate and be more closer to the characters and through the story, and that's actually gets our job done. So yeah, so we actually have oops. So yeah, so we have so for each performance we actually have an actor who is classically trained in improv, who actually leads the performance. So it's also kind of like kind of a director as well as an actor, because he actually navigates the story and he leads the story depending on like the answers or actions of the user who is experiencing the story. So yeah, so we actually built Tinker to be flexible, and we aim to provide the actor as much tools as possible uh, to give him
Okay, game.
to give him the tools necessary to improve his performance. So we gave him like different controls to improve his performance, his emotions, and he also has actually tools to direct the story as is his fit. So he's in charge of like progressing the narrative, is in charge of like triggering different elements, the weather, and all those kinds of stuff that affects the elements of the story. So Tinker is really dependent on. So we actually built the networking framework to ensure real-time interactions and communications for Tinker. So it's a bit more complicated and both technically and logistically actually to normal storytelling experiences in VR, because we, aside from having that real live person on the other end, we have to ensure that we have this back end that would really accommodate and make sure that the actual experiences and actual interaction between them would be still as humanly as possible. So there. So throughout, so actually the story of Finger, there's it actually encompasses I think 5 decades, 5 decades of no, not really 5 decades. It's around 3 decades of stories throughout, but throughout 5 different periods in time. So the user as the grandchild actually gets to experience and to feel what it feels like as the grandfather ages and so start to show the symptoms of Alzheimer's. So there. I try to keep it as brief as possible and try to make it but there. So we when we launched it at Sundance, really got like stellar reviews, because like a lot of the participants, like after the experience, some of them are crying, some of them are like distraught after the experience, because they it really provides a more impactful emotionally in terms of impact to them compared to not just traditional mediums but other formats of VR storytelling. So right now we just actually tried. We really just wanted to create the most impactful experience that we can. But in terms of the future for Tinker, because right now it's really hard to do this, because each performance we had to schedule live performance with the actor. So actually for the future, we're also gonna do like recorded performances. So other people will, so it will be more accessible to more people actually. So yeah, that's it for me. So if anyone has any questions, I think there will be we'll have time at the end of the talk. But yeah, I'm glad to share. Thanks for everyone who listened in, and I'm glad to share my experience in sharing this kind of new format for VR.
Cool. It appears that XR technologies may help us make the leap from storytelling animals to story living animals and couple of the cloud. Maybe we are closer to eternity than we think. Last but not least, Shengen, contemporary artist and founder of Cloud Tech, will share with you about volumetric captures and the afterlife. Over to you, Shengen.
Hello. Sorry if I sound really bad. I am still recovering from a stomach flu, and I didn't go into any KTV, just so you all know. I'll start this slide with this digital camera, which it belongs to my uncle. I think back in the 80s, this was the first time ever I saw my first digital photograph. Yeah. And it was amazing. Like to see an image that appears onto a TV screen in an age where there was still VHS tape and cassette tapes. This was really, really mind-blowing to me. And I think it's this sensation that sort of kept me going as an artist. And the next few slides, I'll be sharing with you what I've done over the years. Just a few slides. This is a work called Ghosts of Yesterdays, which I did for the art house at the CIFA in 2018. So I wrote the program where there's two channels streaming, one of a recorded video from yesterday and one live streaming today. The part where you see me down here right now, that's where I am today. These guys who are a little bit translucent, they are from yesterday. So I was having this question to ask, what if I was to see myself from yesterday? What would I ask myself. And I think being growing up as a Singaporean, being Peranakan and all, I grew up with stories about ghosts and of memories or of afterlives and stuff like that, and it just sticks with me lah. So the next one I'm showing, this is a volumetric, not volumetric, it's a photogrammetry that I did. I think 2015 I did this, and in 2017 there's actually an exhibition in Singapore, and that was for the artist village. It's called Metagraphy. And at that time, I was still based in South Korea, and I wasn't able to come back to Singapore. And I thought, okay, since I cannot come back to Singapore, the next better thing is to just send a digital version of myself back to Singapore. And as you can see on the exhibition itself, where it's a augmented reality piece, they see a full 3D model of me standing there. And the idea is to encourage people to take pictures with me while as if I'm not there. So when this picture started to go onto social media and stuff like that, everyone started to ask me like, hey, are you back in Singapore? I'm like, no, I'm not. And this is literally life size and stuff like that. So I thought it was a very interesting take on it. Like if I was to die tomorrow, maybe a version of this will still exist. Right now the work is still traveling in South Korea and Japan, I think. Yeah. Earlier this year, I got together the Artist Village members, and we decided to produce a few augmented reality works. And we range from photogrammetry to 3D performance, volumetric performance, to VR painting, sound, visuals. This is a short promo for it, huh? So this piece is when you look over it, it will just play a sound. Augmented reality over pictures. This is by Isabel. This is by Natasha and Izam. So as you can see here, this is a volumetric capture, and it was very, very tricky to put it all into a mobile app to balance between processing powers and having the app not to be able to crash. This is by Justin Lee. Justin Lee is like a painter in Singapore, so I invited him to my place and to paint, and then transport it to augmented reality. I can move on. So, one of the works that I'm super proud of is the collaboration between me and Izam Rahman and Sophia Natasha Wei. So we did this performance art piece into volumetric capture onto augmented reality. And one of the first few questions we asked was, performance art, as we know so far, has always been, you go on site, you see how the performance artists perform. And I came in and I was like, okay, what if we could watch performance artists just about wherever we want, and still everything is life size, true to scale, as realistic as possible. So the whole process of doing this was I actually got them into my studio. We recorded over to Xbox Kinect, and then pieced together as a 3D model. So yeah. I think when things like this that we see, usually I myself feel like, you know, back to watching that first digital photograph that I saw back in the 80s, it really sort of a bit of a mind bender for me. And yeah, I move on. Huh? This piece is a collaboration with Eve Tan, where we it was for another performance art collaboration in between Korea and Singapore. And what happened was that I mean, I have the technology. Eve is a performance artist where she wants to deal with feminism issue, and I thought, okay, let's just volume capture as much as we can, and then we just lay out the whole thing like a John Malkovich kind of poster, where we just keep on playing different roles of women, of how, in a sense, how how men actually look at them. Yeah. So you have the Wong Kar Wai like Chong Sam, you have the nurse, you have the schoolgirl, you have the OL, you have the bride. Yeah. I'll move on. So this is a slide where I took this picture when I was in one of my lectures in South Korea in my university called KAIST, and my department was sent to do like a 3D scan of the whole entire cavern that was actually found like back in 2015 or something, 2015, of this whole Buddhist sculpture and like monastery and stuff like that, and almost no one has entered the space for thousands of years. So uh, my department actually went there, 3D scanned everything, decided to turn the whole experience into a virtual reality walkthrough. And throughout the walkthrough, it was quite interesting. This Chinese lady, as she was going through the what do you call it, the virtual reality experience, she started to like pray to Pai Pai, and she started to cry, you know. And I was like, wow, this is damn interesting. How can a 3D object, you know, turn someone so emotional? And how how am I able to reproduce this? And that was a huge question I have. And upon coming back to Singapore, I decided to found this startup where we are going to volumetric capture anyone who wish to leave a last message behind for their loved ones. And one of my I don't have any tests right now, but based on the previous ones that you've seen so far, what one of my first few tests was actually with my mother. I asked my mother to leave me a message. When she's gone, I'll look at it. But when I went through the footage and stuff like that, and I watched it in virtual reality, in full 3D volumetric captured, um, my mother's last message to me was, she called me Aboya, and she said, Aboya, please don't smoke so much. And I was like, I just started to brawl in my headset, and I was like, okay, this is something crazy. This is we're on to something very interesting here. And apart from the whole startup thing, currently we are also doing we are doing collaboration with theater companies into understanding, see if there's possibilities of theater and technology can come together to produce some work. I'm also producing a volumetric captured short film, which is based on one of Cyril Wong's poems. And yeah, that's about it. And I guess the idea of how perhaps this extended reality could not just be on a commercial use level. If I think any artist or technologist, anyone who can find the application to see what can we apply this technology to onto a very modern day need. Um, that's where I see that it will be going. Thank you. That's all from me.
Thank you for the sharing about extended reality journeys through time and how we can layer on different levels of experience and emotions with this technology. And I hope that we can all now see from these broad strokes of sharing and works that all kinds of interesting applications, stories, and questions are being presented with XR. So thank you all for a wonderful series of presentations. Our various speakers have hopefully painted for all our viewers a more vivid picture of how XR can make possible new realities, and in fact left you with more questions that we hope to tackle next. I will now pass the time over to Lionel, who will moderate the panel Q&A. Lionel, please.
Hey, thanks, Ernie. Well, I hope everybody has benefited in many ways, the many sharings by the different artists, and that was quite extensive in terms of a lot of stuff I guess many of us learned. A couple of hashtags really being stuck in my head, from story living to no 0 days to many, many more. I hope that could be also a spark of inspiration for all the attendees in the session. We did get a number of questions, of course, as well coming in. So maybe before we kickstart the questions, and maybe for Ernie as well to help to see if there's any that we might take that are incoming, let me just start the Q&A right away. And some of them will be directed to certain artists or even those in the panel. Some of it could be open, so you can jump in and maybe even respond in your own time. But I think the first that we have lined up would probably be a good question to sort of reinforce, especially, or to reiterate for those that are greatly inspired by everything that you have seen, heard, and lived in over the last few hours, which is really what would be the first steps for you to get started? I mean, we've seen, and heard Debbie's version, and for those in the panel, maybe we can also share that as well. So maybe at this point, a quick sharing, Debbie, if you could, then maybe you can ask Iran to jump in as well.
Yeah, so I guess what the question was is about what exactly what people what is good to start with, is it?
What would be your first steps in terms of
what would be my first steps?
Yeah.
For me, I think that not being scared of the coding part or the technology part is important. I mean, I think I spend quite a considerable amount of time picking up new things, even now, even though I work full-time and everything. I spend all day learning bits and pieces. I do bit tutorials, lazy tutorials. My favorite series right now on YouTube is the lazy tutorials of Blender, for people who have no time. And this by Ian Hubert, that's the one I really like. And these are just learning all the time, because I think the technology moves on pretty quickly as well. And I also try to build a minimum viable product very early on to make sure that it's technically possible before I go and build a whole design around the whole thing. So I have to get that technical part down pat before I actually do any of the art part. Yeah.
Well, thanks for that. Speaking of the learning part, of course, maybe unknown to some of the attendees, Unity has actually got a very rich portal for learning as well. So maybe Iran, you can share a little bit about this.
Yep. So I think, thanks, Lionel. So I think, like Lionel mentioned, a lot of material. If you are interested, I guess, in picking up Unity, is available on the Learn portal. That being said, aside from the Learn portal, which is Unity's own, there are too many tutorials on the web to count. As anyone who has, I guess, even considered, looking at Unity can probably attest to all manner of content creators all over the world. Chances are, I think, if you have faced a problem, someone has faced it and probably fixed it. So yeah, honestly speaking, from what we see, while the Learn portal is good to get you started, if you plan on, I guess, delving deeper into some of the more, especially some of the more complex or customized use cases, there will be a point where it will no longer serve your purposes. But that being said, I do recommend you check out the forums as well. Yeah, I guess one of the benefits of having such a large community is that it's a really active place for developers. Yeah, you find all manner of profiles, right, from business people to artists to developers. And yeah, hopefully your problem will be solved there. Failing which, you can drop me an email and I'll be happy to try and point you to the right place.
Thanks, Iran. So for those of us who heard that, it's essentially unity.com/learn. And then under student, there is a start learning now. So it can't be a little bit more direct than that. But I think also getting inspired by the artist is learning technical skills is one thing, but what is the inspiration behind what you want to do in terms of this virtual experience? And taking a lead from Debbie, starting on the MVP of learning and developing a minimum viable experience, for example, would be a good start, or even from Sunjan's and Christopher's and even some of the other artists' experience of what would be the origins of the inspiration behind your work before you start. But maybe on a different tangent, the Dude has a lot of experience in a different platform for learning. So maybe you can help us to jump in and end off this question with what you have or how you have started with Sparks.
Oh, Spark AR, they have some basic tutorials online already on sparkar.com where you make a face filter really quickly. I ran some workshops where people just make their first face filter super quickly. The basic stuff are super easy, but the basic stuff is not what I'm interested in. I want to do stuff that no one has done. So and for those, there are no tutorials already. So it is like the next step. It's figuring shit out yourself. That one. And it's exciting because it's exciting for SparkR because there's not too many tutorials. Just now, Iran was talking about Unity. There are so many tutorials about every problem already. So that's how I started out in Unity also. Because there's a lot of tutorials online. That's how I learned. But now that I've learned all that already, I want to do stuff that there are no tutorials for, and that's where you start to get cracking at breaking boundaries and pushing the limits of certain things.
I'll start looking out for Eugene's tutorial series coming your way really soon.
Oh yeah, I made one, but now I got no time. I made like one.
Yeah. Okay, so that means to sum up this question, really find the inspiration for what you want to do first, pick the technologies, and then look for these different channels to start learning on them. But once you start learning on them, of course, you would, I guess, face roadblocks. And besides technical roadblocks, like, any of the codes or any of the build, there might be other kinds of roadblocks of maybe audience perception or feedback. So as an open question to the artist, what would these be some of the biggest roadblocks that you have encountered? Would it be like budget, constantly finding out you're running out of money and you have to work and neglect your project? Or you get very bad reviews at the MVP level by some of your peers, how you cope with some of those things. So maybe as an open question to anyone to jump in. Anybody?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
I think so. I graduated as a painter from LaSalle, and only at the age of 30 something. I was based in South Korea for about 10 over years, and when I landed the gig in KAIST, I went into a program where everyone around me was all computer scientists and computer engineers, and when they asked me what kind of languages do I know, I said English, Chinese, Malay, Hokkien. But the thing is, that was a huge learning curve. I had to literally force myself to sit down, go to like codeacademy.com and just teach myself shit from not knowing how to code or anything. I know how to do some video editing and shit last time, and then to venturing to what it is now, building robots and virtual realities and augmented reality experiences. And I think that was a huge roadblock for me, jumping from something traditional to something more contemporary. Yeah.
Oh, nice story. I learned Unity at my 40s as well. So age is but a number to learning.
Yes,
I think.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Anybody had any user feedback, perceptions, and peer criticism for your work that you felt very distraught with? And I mean, some of the artists might really get that early on in their in their beginnings. How any point that you can share regarding, for example, it's easy to tell a traditional artist like stop dabbling in digital stuff by any one of their peers. Anybody got anything like this to maybe share as a?
Yeah, I guess if in a community like all this tech stuff, you can share your solution. There's always like naysayers who come in and say like, oh, this solution won't work for this thing, this and that. But I guess that is the kind of mentality where people with fear, they start to like fear solutions. They're not like solution oriented, but I'm more like solution oriented. I want to get things working. So I would do up a rough prototype, no matter how it might not work on certain phones or something like that, but it works. That's like number one thing. So sometimes when you share these solutions, you're very excited, you want to share it, then people come in and say they pretend to know, like they know how you did it, but they actually don't know how you did it.
Nice. Actually, to add on to that, there's obviously another additional question which I might actually answer myself, which is when you develop some of these things, because you're not going to stage it at a mass arena or like a VR headset, it has to be an individual experience. Many times you get people asking you, how are you going to get enough people to view it, experience it? Like, for example, Chris's piece is so intricate that you have to so Chris, when you started, did you ever wonder, like, is the number of people that's going to experience this will just be able to be counted by your fingers, or you're very confident that you're going to get a huge mass amount of people to experience it?
Well, when we started, really just wanted to create the best experience and what makes most sense for the story we're trying to tell. So that's why we chose that live format. But and I think we're quite it became quite effective. And like because initially, I think what we're targeting with was like really to showcase it to like people who really can make a change in those arenas, like someone who can people who can really make a change in terms of Alzheimer's research. So but yeah, we're it's only just now that we're really coming up with new ways to really make it more accessible.
And of course, I mean, being your piece, having to wear headsets, and all that, anybody would come along and go like, understanding headsets would be, to immerse in the content. How would you articulate to people that haven't experienced VR before how this immersive factor would come into being? Yeah. I mean, traditionally, we watch video and all that, right? So how do you actually convince somebody that VR is the way to go for this story?
Well, usually it's just the only way is to let them try it, because it's really hard to tell or like just tell like how awesome it is to do it in VR, like how impactful it is without actually even trying it. And like there's not just with this project, but even with several projects before, it's always like can we like do like a mobile version of this? Can we like do a web version of this? Can we make like something that would be more accessible, something that more people would be able to try? But doing that would actually be like compromising the actual vision and like the actual goal at the start. So which would be like actually counterproductive into what we're trying to do, which is like to really showcase the experience, the story in the most immersive way we can. So although eventually we do need to do that too if we want to reach more people, but it's more of like compromise. It's more of really compromise and then, but we really always want to start with as much as possible showing it in VR or doing it in VR, and then just trickle down after.
Yes. So does anybody else like to jump in?
Hi, Kevin here from National
Kevin.
Gallery, YLab. So this question is very interesting because while the creators and the artists are talking about potential roadblocks in trying to deliver some of these experiences, I think there's also, if you think about the cart and the horse, the other side of the story is also those of us, for example, Gervais and myself, who work in the museum industry, we have to also ask this question: what makes mixed reality or extended reality so different, that it's so powerful, that it's worth that additional cost? And by additional cost, we can't deny the fact that to build these new worlds, to build these alternate realities, does take up more time and energy than, say, filmmaking or other methods whatsoever. So I think this is the part that's a bit fleeting and a bit intangible, but I think Shingen came close when he expressed how emotional it can get because of how real it could feel. And I thought that could be expounded. Maybe artists around the table here could share, like, what do you think makes that delta, so that we, as, say, the potential stakeholders and funders and people who want to commission such things, can also go back to the different stakeholders and express what makes it so compelling that it's worth that additional dollar.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, if you don't mind, I'll jump in as well, since Kevin called out as well. So I think what's also important, I mean, we've been playing around with VR for a while, and I think every year, I think we've been saying that, hey, it's getting serious, and I think to a certain extent it is, right? I mean, it is moving on in terms of adoption, but there's still a very basic limitation, which I think some of you mentioned, the headsets, right? Access to headsets equates to access to good quality VR, right? So I mean, if you are watching a good product in a sub quality kind of platform, then no, obviously you don't enjoy it as much, and so it's kind of like a vicious cycle. So in a way, you kind of almost need to drive adoption through getting people to take on the light version of it, and then kind of entice them to want to buy more, and kind of try to entice them to want to level up what they can do. And I think that's really important, the adoption portion, but also the business case for it, right? I mean, end of the day, the funders who are giving you the money to develop these projects, I guess it ranges from commercial to even if it's non-profit, I think the KPIs is reached, how many people have access to those projects as well. So I think those are the realities of it. What we can do, I mean, as a community, as arts institutions, is really saying that, okay, let's start building on this. How can we be effective in storytelling such that people start to see that it is viable, and it is it's not just a good to have, but it's almost a must have. Trying to move that bar from saying that, hey, yeah, no, it's an optional thing, to saying that, hey, this is essential to you experiencing what we want you to do, right, as part of the storytelling experience. Yeah.
So to add on as well, like for the VR installation that we did for excavation for Digital Muse, we took it upon ourselves to also bring it to Taiwan and also to Korea, without them saying, hey, can you go do something about it? I think when you sort of feel like you own the piece, you really want to see it being taken further, and you might want to do your own, bits of taking it through your context and whatever available opportunities are there. And then since that 2018 version, we have actually traveled to 3 other countries outside of Singapore, and it wasn't a KPI in the commission that we got as well. But we just love it to share, And since Kevin spoke about, Sanjan's piece, maybe Sanjan can expound on that a bit more as well.
Oh yeah, I think in terms of in terms of AR and how it's being experienced, I think most of the problems that I face is like, as much as the volumetric captures can be done, it's still extremely taxing on like a very small device like these. And yeah, I think as an artist, it was quite easy for my case when I want to to showcase the short film that I'm making right now. I actually had to just put in the budget for just more additional headsets. This time around, it's going to be in full virtual reality. And I think the more you try to distance yourself from the quality and the connectivity of the work, you sort of get this distance and disconnection to it. Yeah. So more money for the artist, please.
Thanks, Sanjan. Debbie, you wanted to jump in as well, did you?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, also talking about all this, when we talk as artists producing this kind of work, I also find sometimes that we are misunderstood where it comes from, because what we are producing is not a tech demo, but sometimes it's treated like a tech demo, like somebody using tilt brush now, but what we're producing is still about the content, the art, and there's a lot of technology hype. So for me, right, what's the problem is sometimes when I show work, it's I want audiences to go beyond the, oh, it's so futuristic, I've never done a headset before or something like that. I want to go beyond that to the point like now when we have a smartphone, you know, nobody thinks it's like, wow, it's normal, it's part of everyday life. So you experience it just the way it is, you know. So that's one thing that I hope that one day we get to, so that it doesn't become just people mistaking it, because, you know, people also assume that maybe the technology, because when you use something technology, it must be futuristic and perfect. But of course, there are lots of glitches, there are lots of issues, and, you know, even I myself, I didn't want to have to deal with the optimization, like what Shengil's talked about, you know. But if you talk about, you want to move for mobile or what platform you're doing, all these things we have to, I just want to make art, but also I do have to get to grips with all those problems, you know, how many pass the multi, there's so many problems that are, you know, whether you have too many vertices in your model because you scanned it and you wanted to make it look broken or something, you know, I have that problem too. So, you know, it's something that, you know, I almost feel like the people making it have to have a sense of humor, or the audience also has to understand that it comes from there, you know, that it's not a tech demo. Yeah, it's art.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. I think also taking a lead from that is the fact that, you know, having your no 0 days heavily on my mind, that every opportunity cost in your time in between is really time that could be spent somewhere else as well. And this is particularly going to be a bit more crucial for those that don't hold a full-time job per se, or you're running your own, you know, business, because then you'll be straddling between the two. And I would imagine, like, you know, what Dude is experiencing or what Chris is experiencing, every time you invest, or Sanjin, you know, when you invest time into doing your own personal works, then there is a trade-off between another commercial work that you might have to either turn away or put in the back burner. I think particularly for Chris's work, wanted to check on 2 counts of that. Did the Sundance experience actually translate to like business, since you're also you know, in the side of business? And on that question, was it difficult to get into Sundance?
So in terms of like the post Sundance, no, actually it didn't really correspond to any like monetary, at least for the moment. Yeah, but for now we're actually planning to it's mostly just for the accolades, but we're still planning on like monetizing it soon through paid performances, as the experience actually pretty limited. So actually the next step we're planning is to like get a big name Hollywood actor to play the grandpa and like sell tickets to the performance and to raise for Alzheimer's users. What was the second question again?
How easy or difficult was it to get to Sundance? Is it something everybody here can try?
Yeah, actually I think so. I mean, it is difficult. I think it was the second time. I think it was the second time that we applied for it. I wasn't as involved in the first time, but right now, when we applied last time, it was when it was accepted. But we also, I think, not just Sundance, but we also got like rejected by other film festivals. So I think we also applied for Cannes and for I think for Tribeca. Yeah, but and for Venice, I think Venice was the last one we got rejected to. But by the time Sundance came, like the experience was mostly like close to the as polished as we can that time. So I think it was that's why it was
Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. Also because I was in conversations with you know, a Sundance programmer back in 2017, 2018, and having gone through my last 2020 Cannes experience, I think some of the sharings I could give is to make sure that the story or the idea behind your work needs to be front and center rather than the tech. And the story needs to be universally understood in an international arena, for example, as Cannes or Sundance. So I think that would be the key focus of how you might want to position your work, rather than search for which R you want to develop in and then find the story to supplement it. So I mean, it sounds like, you know, common sense, but actually when you really put down, you know, the to-do list or the next steps to take, actually you should preoccupy your time with zooming in on the story and how that transcends to an international audience, rather than which platform to learn. So yeah, and of course, speaking of, you know, all the different international festivals, arenas, events, and all that, All of them, as we know, are disrupted by COVID. So I think the question here will be very relevant to the institutions, if Gervais and Kevin can jump in. We artists will find any avenues that we can, of course, or the technologists and artists will try to find. But in post-COVID, where people have found maybe outlets to showcase their work, would XR continue to play a role in the institution side of things? Or we're going to see artists do their own thing and ignore institutions, or are institutions really going to find a new way to call them back into your institutions?
Yep. So I think I'll start off on this question. So I think what we have seen right now during COVID, post-COVID, I think as I kind of shared briefly in my presentation, is that we see a lot more adoption from museums, first of all, in terms of not just experimenting, but really, it became a case where it wasn't an option for them anymore. It was either they have a virtual presence of some form or other, or they just lose that kind of connection with their visitors for the duration of, I don't know, is it 2 years already? So I think firstly, I think we start to see that there's a lot more bridging of that mental hurdle that institutions and museums had, because there was always museums and institutions have always been about authenticity, right? So it's about authentic artifacts, authentic artworks. It's not a replica. You have to see it. But I think where it's shifted a little bit is that right now it's moved into this realm where we are viewing digital experiences as also authentic experiences. It may not be an authentic artwork, or it may be a replica or a digital replica of something, but in itself, it is an authentic and viable experience for people to get to connect with your content. And I think the other thing that's come about is that there's a lot of acknowledgement that, hey, this is almost like a second screen experience, right? I mean, it's really saying that I am able to layer on something, that will be meaningful to the visitors. So fundamentally, this doesn't change post-COVID, because when you start to move into a realm where you start to saying, okay, visitors are now coming back to the museums, this same lens can apply, because even though you're not in the museum and you kind of had those virtual experiences, there's nothing to say that, particularly with AR and MR and all this, there's nothing to say that you cannot also layer on that experience to add on to your museum journey. The tension will still be there. I mean, in terms of, okay, when you're at the museum, I technically don't want you staring at a screen and kind of running around staring at your phone, because that's not the point of a museum experience, right? I mean, I want you to look and soak in everything that we've created for you in the physical space. But there's nothing to once again say that we cannot extend the conversation when you're sitting down at a cafe having a coffee. Hey, why not try to explore more about what you have just seen? Are you able to in fact contribute your own personal kind of layers onto that? And I think that's where this whole notion of XR comes in, because it becomes a lot more social in its evolutionary timeline as we move ahead. So it's no longer necessarily just a solitary experience, but it's really a social experience that we're trying to drive towards. And it essentially, I mean, when people come to museums, they hope to have that social connection. And likewise, they hope to be able to learn more and extend that experience. And digital does allow for that. Yeah, so that's my quick 2 cents worth on that.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Thanks, Gervais. Perhaps from the gallery side, there is definitely demand for this idea of mixed reality and extended reality, because there's some of us that are considering it as a post-pandemic or even endemic kind of new normal. And to really put this into perspective, is this idea that we also all realize that the endemic has caused everyone to rethink their business models, whether the gallery or any museum should just fully leverage visitorship, or take in the idea that, as long as people engage with us online or offline, really doesn't matter. I can tell you that from a Singapore perspective, this is the kind of maturity that we're leaning towards already. So we're not drawing lines there anymore, and the lines are being blurred. The binary no longer exists. So we live in a spectrum. And so when Gervais brought up the notion that, the art or the artifact is front and center, that is true. That is still true. But we don't deny the fact that behaviors are also changing. That second screen notion, or the need to call out information on demand, becomes also quite critical. And also, just because someone visits the museum or the gallery on that time of day, doesn't mean that before or after that visit, the person might not be thinking about it as well. So we fully acknowledge that there's a life cycle to it. So then it's the case where the gallery in itself is also considering how does XR fit in the entire scheme of things as a person experiences the real artifact or the real artwork. Where and when do we intercept the idea of the XR? Does it happen at the same time or does it happen post? Reminds me of the Schengen's effort on that ghost effect. But the idea here is then how do we keep that inspiration or the idea that the person has encountered and keep it resonating and keep it, gestating. And of course, promote a revisit after that. So we have some investments also, just like Javier, being made in this front. And I can tell you from the methodology of some of us who run innovation labs here, we do trend spotting. This is definitely one trend that a lot of us are looking at. NHB, NEC, the gallery, SAM, because we're excited on the prospect. And I think just like how our artists today are experiencing it or building it, there is no final state. It is still a chaotic Wild West, and we are all discovering it together. So it's a journey that we're making. But I love that just now Javier had responded to my question about the idea of is XR here to stay, even though it costs a lot, because that discussion shouldn't take place anymore. This is merely another channel, and it's another form of storytelling, which is critical in our business as well. Yeah, whether you're conveying the virtues of art or virtues of heritage. So for practicality reasons, our innovation labs, whether it's Digimuse, Y Labs, SAM, NEC has art tech labs as well. You can look out to these open calls that are being made out quite regularly across a calendar year, right? With so many of these labs opening up, we'll be making so many open calls that are general innovation ones that are quite broad, or some of them are quite specific to XR. And that's where I'm already seeing some of the open calls receiving a lot of very extended reality applications from artists and vendors as well. So I must say it's quite healthy, because I recently screened and evaluated a lot of them with the Light Tonight festival team. Light Tonight is also, a festival that we run. And a lot of what our teams are going through is to think about how do we hybridize the experience. We're so used to the physical. We have to live in this new reality where it's both physical and virtual at the same time. So that when, say, the government has no choice but to activate heightened alert again, right? And we keep oscillating back and forth, we can still survive as a business. We can still thrive because we've readied the business to adapt. So I can tell you that for a fact that we are hungry. We're all doing work around there. So I hope that's good news for everyone in this space, a light at the end of the tunnel for all of us to fight for.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I think, thanks, Kevin Gervais, for that. I think beyond, the local Singapore landscape, we are missing out on the one guy that has got of course, the international landscape, because not only have I seen him post quite regularly on LinkedIn about the international Unity-related developments, but maybe Aaron can also share more regarding, what he has seen in this particular area outside of Singapore.
Yeah, I think like back to the question, right? Where we were looking at whether how XR will play, in the post-COVID world. Actually, if you think about it, even pre-COVID, right, when ever since I guess the internet and YouTube exploded onto the scene, we actually have been seeing like a massive surge of user-generated content, and that's quite a different thing from what we used to have pre-internet, where things like film, broadcast, the radio, newspapers, all these are really complex, complicated content, which are primarily driven by professionals, organizations, and I think personally, I'll explain more later. I think XR will go towards more this user-generated content, where it's going to be a huge role, not just in the way we work, but in the way we live as well. There is a caveat though. Like, I think there are two main parts that I think need to be addressed. But firstly, of course, is that I think both for virtual reality and maybe to some extent augmented reality, the hardware still has some way to go to become truly accessible to consumers. I mean, after all, if you think about it, only if you have the content, then only if you have the platform to view the content, then you can actually see it, especially for a platform as unique as a virtual reality or augmented reality. I don't know if you guys still remember, but when VR first really came onto the scene in the 2000s, you would have to pay like almost $1,000 for a headset, and that's not even including the PC, which and even then that sort of content was like pretty janky. It made people motion sick, and people are like, VR sucks, I'm not gonna do this again. And they said it's gonna take another 10-20 years. But if you've seen like how we have really developed, now you can have an Oculus Quest 2 for I think like a couple $100, and I think the future is bright in terms of where we see industries are going, and that's just for virtual reality. There's of course a huge number of use cases for AR as well, and personally what we see is that just like we have moved from the last time the brick, the takata, the smartphone, handphones, right, to now we have like sleek smartphones that pretty much power our daily lives. I think it's an eventuality that XR will really change the way we experience and consume this sort of content. And the second part, of course, aside from the hardware, is the actual content, right? Whether or not it's going to be still done by these big studios, companies, or something decentralized like what we see on YouTube, where anyone who has the need, right, the want to create, can do it. And I think that eventually, with tools like visual scripting, pre-made assets, I think that journey is only going to become simpler. Of course, I guess it's a sort of thing where it's easy to pick up, difficult to master, but I do think that if you take a look at applications like VR chat, it's been around for like almost 10 years now, and I think it's doing really, really well. If you take a look, there are millions of user-generated content, thousands of works, really amazing stuff. Like they made Among Us in VR. Like, if you tell me like 20 years ago, you'll be seeing like people, just some random hobbies creating like amazing stuff like that. It's insane, basically. And personally, I'm really looking forward to this sort of content in all parts of the human experience, right? Like ranging from how we work to how we live. And I think basically XR is going to be huge in the future.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Ewan. Actually, to extend beyond that, how some of these user-generated content emerged from the popularity of a game per se. But I mean, specifically to Unity, you also notice that the skill set that enables you to use Unity for XR would be the same core skill set for you to develop a game, which then doesn't stop you from exploring your next art piece within a game format, as I shared earlier as well. So I think that kind of broad skill set in terms of this core that you have mastered in terms of either developing XR or having your next work as a game art, is becoming something that you could actually broaden as a scope to say, wow, I can now choose, right? And with my bit of sharing of how the line is very blurred now between what is the metaverse, so to speak, we might see a lot of these merger to come, whereby your one piece of work could be experienced across the different areas of expressions, so to speak. But on that note, there must be something among all of you, and maybe starting with the artists, that you might, constantly be inspired by, or by somebody or a certain artwork, in your current field of work currently. Is there any one of you that might maybe share with the attendees, about something that you haven't shared in your slides, maybe a secret artist or your fan among some of us here? Which ones you might name here that you could share so that some of us could check out as well and see what was the inspiration behind your artist or the work that you like? If Among Us could be one of them, also no problem.
I could start first. I think there's this guy, his name is Norton Helix. American back in the 50s. I think he was like the founder of virtual reality. When I went through the lectures of finding out what he's doing or what he did back then, it was like a really mind-blowing experience. And the question is, if that was being able to done back then, what can we do now? How can we further the experiences of virtual reality? Yeah.
I also don't mind sharing like one of the game studios, but I won't say game studio. Is it a game studio or art studio? It's called Tender Claws. They produced the game virtual reality, where you're in servitude. You are this human who is all the robots are asking you to do things because humans do it kind of badly or an artisanal way. Anyway, it's a long story, but they kind of play with storytelling through different mediums. They also have the Tender Claws also made this app. What was it called? Tendar, where you have a little fish, and it's an AR fish, and then it eats you basically scan your face, and your face emotions become the flakes to feed the fish, for example. And the fish is like something, just talks to you like a weird philosophical Tamagotchi. So I mean I really like all this kind of games that obviously have a lot of work put into them. They're not almost games in the sense of a game where it's a mastery of game control, but it's kind of quite exploration and kind of about the story in the end. So those are the things that I kind of really dig in kind of games that are on the a bit left field side of things. Yeah.
I mean, it's good to know that when there's no 0 days, there's still time for games, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, the kind of games I do play games, but they're not. I play Second Life a lot as well, actually. Still,
wow, okay.
Which I know no one talks about here, but even there, so that's where also I got started in trying making all these weird 3D things as well. Yeah.
Nice. Dude, any inspiration there?
Oh, I like Rick and Morty, the animation. Yeah.
And the game.
Yeah, and they have the virtual reality game which I bought and I played. It's so fun.
All the things.
It's again not like a conventional game, but it's like tons of fun. Really serves the fans also. So I grew up playing lots of like fantasy games like Baldur's Gate, Fallout, to such a point that now I collect swords. Recently during the COVID period, I realized that we could buy swords. I have like a two-handed sword like beside me now, like an actual sword. So now I have a bunch of them, and my girlfriend is asking me to throw them away, but they're so expensive.
Chris, anything? Any source of inspiration of XR experiences which have left you impactful, or some games that you might be very influenced by?
Recently no, actually, but I think the last really great VR experience I tried was Half-Life Alyx, but that's just incomparable in terms of like level of production to like but yeah, in terms of story, it's actually more in actually my first love is film, actually. So, and I think like good stories are like transcends like any format. So like VR is really just a new way of like telling stories in a different way.
Yep. But I think on that note, it's also quite a big thing to be in a VR experience where almost everything in the environment can be interacted with, right? So that I think that was really how you up the game, because you can go to any part of the environment and you can actually kick and interact with them. I think that would be what Half-Life was attempting to do in that sense. Kevin, Gervais, Ernie? I think Ernie is a gamer, closet gamer or secret gamer, open gamer.
Yeah, maybe I'll go first. Okay, so I'm not that much of a gamer. I mean, I play some here and there, but in terms of VR experiences, for me, I think what kind of struck me back then was, I think, Notes on Blindness. I think maybe some of you might know it. Yeah, so I think that showed me the potential of VR, really. So I mean, for those of you not that familiar, Notes on Blindness was a film that was released at Sundance as well.
Yep.
And it basically documented this individual, John, I think, and his process of losing his sight. Right, and it so they added on basically this VR component where you can actually kind of put it on and you kind of walk through that experience of, okay, now without sight, how would your sensory experience be, right? What are the things that and gradually, as you kind of lose your sight, what are the kinds of emotions that you are feeling as you're going through that process? So to me, that was actually really, really impactful, because it showed me that, hey, VR is it's not film, it's almost a different medium, and it really, I think what's interesting about it is that it creates a much greater sense of connection and empathy. And I think really from there, then I started to kind of go around and look at VR a little bit more seriously. Yeah.
I think if you think about it, when it's first started with the print medium, right? So people will express these fantastical landscapes, experiences in words, and then you leave it up to the reader's imagination to envision into reality. Then when TV came around, people go, wow, we actually can see what exactly these people are talking about. And I think VR in that sense, you take that one step further, right? Things that may be completely improbable or impossible to recreate in reality, you can, I mean, because it's all virtual, right? You can essentially do some pretty fantastic things, right? Like how, I think, what Gervais mentioned, how exactly does a blind man feel losing his sight, or maybe you can have someone in the final days of their life, for example, some very hard hitting, impactful stuff. But personally, I enjoyed Beat Saber the most because of fitness and music. So yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know. It's simple but catchy, and next thing you know, it's really got a lot of people into it.
I wanted to add one more as well. One more thing. I just want to say, because this is the first live stream I've been on something to this scale, and I always think that the thing about VR Cat and all this is that also it gives you a sense that you're connected to lots of people. And long ago, there was, not so long ago, but there was a game, Goat Simulator, which I really liked. Goat Simulator MMO, which I once played on a plane. This is before COVID, where you basically look like you're in an MMO and people chatting and people are there asking you questions and everything. But you're not. It's a game. It's not a game. It's not that the thing just, every time it looks some crazy random chat of random usernames chatting. And so you get that whole sense wow, you're in a real MMO. Is that sense of connection of being in a big community of users that you get sometimes from these kind of games as well. Yeah. Like you're part of something bigger.
It's almost like a simulation of a simulation. It's quite funny.
Yeah.
I know. I guess I also want to share one part where I think a lot of us experience Second Life and what promise it would have had.
Yes. Yep.
In that I know you mentioned things like the Matrix and all that, and I think we're still very curious, whether we might reach that stage. And I think we are on the precipice of, and maybe Iram might know more. We're probably on the precipice where Facebook will be releasing Horizon soon. Apple has its own plans. You see Apple developing these very advanced 3D maps in the map program. Yep. There must be a reason why. And with the smart glasses, they're going to probably double down on doing something really fantastic. And I have a high suspicion that the metaverses that we're all exploring right now, we're going to start to see a universe or several parallel universes of that constructed by different tech companies to dominate our consciousness. That's the new real estate that they want to take over, right? So I'm excited in that, we experience Second Life, but what can these new platforms start to offer that is compelling? I can tell you one already. The fact that high levels of computing power can be made so portable now is going to change the playing field, because I still remember back in the early 2000s when I had my students get into Second Life to really have a lecture in Second Life. So many of them could not even run it.
Yeah.
The computers could not even run it. So we start to realize, okay, there is still a journey to go, and we maybe in the next few months or early next year start to see this new reality come in. And by the time it comes, at least some of us might be ready with some skill sets, because by the time it comes, it's the new gold rush. It'll be the Web 4.0, and those people who don't have the skills will just fall behind. And that's the new big thing that hopefully is exciting us and preparing for that. Yeah, so when Gervais builds those metaverses, right, maybe some of that could be ported over to Horizon or Apple's new world when we're ready. Then who knows, we could all coexist in two worlds at the same time. Yeah.
Ready Player 2.
Yeah.
So Kevin, good point about that, because very timely we get a question from the attendees about recreating humans, maybe inspired by Sengen's Ghost. And I think this technical question might be a good one to segue, as we tail off into the last few questions for the panel. There's been a number of these questions on Discord as well. So, and we're getting more, I guess, curious regarding creating virtual life-size humans or avatars, because I think the traditional route of creating 3D objects via your 3D software is Googleable and easy to find and learn. But when it comes to realistic humans per se, then that might be a more challenging, task to confront. So maybe before I open to anybody to jump in, maybe Senggen can maybe share regarding the works of how you develop, for example, Eve in what you've done, your findings of some of these replication of human/avatar or life-size people objects that you created.
The first picture I did, my 3D model, that one was made with like I think 30 over Canon 5Ds, because that was when I was in the university and I had all access to equipments. But then as I think I came back to Singapore, I wanted to start things on my own. I don't have access to like 30 Canon 5Ds, So one of the first things I got was this thing. I think this is a very common one. It's a Connect one. This was what I used to capture the volumetric capture. Then as you can remember, like some of the things I've tried, there's a bit of glitchiness that happens, and there was really no choice because of how low res it is. I actually upgraded and got this thing. Cannot see.
No, the Azure Connect. Yeah.
This is the Azure Connect, and yeah.
We'll post the link in the channels.
Yeah, and this will be used to capture much more higher quality volumetric capture for the upcoming film that I'm making. And yeah, technology-wise, yes, it is an investment, but if you have an idea, it usually pays off if it works.
Yeah. That was great. Thanks.
I also remember Debbie using her iPad for
Yeah.
You want to share how you did
now
that?
Now comes with LiDAR.
I think I want to say that the amount of work for that is very little because it can literally just do it for you, and there are lots of different free apps that you can try different ones. I happen to use one called, in fact the name is not very inspiring, the name is literally called 3D Scanner app. You can find it on iOS, the Apple Store, and it scans it, and then I guess I can import it in and clean up the model on my site. So it's really, I can basically just airdrop it to my computer so that I can work on it already. So it's really fast, and I can have it in all the formats. What was it called? The OBJ, whatever format you want, STL, every format also, it will just export immediately. So a lot of it's very simple. I mean, in the past, there used to be different phone apps, like there was 123D Catch, where you could scan things from photographs. There are also paid software like IGSoft, Metashape, that's quite expensive, but they have but basically you can use your DSLR to take pictures and then make a 3D model, and it's really really accurate. There used to be different iPad devices that plug onto it, but now there's no need because the iPad Pro already has the sensor. I believe also some of the certain iPhones will have it as well. So it's quite easy to get started making models, because I started making models everywhere I went already. It's just to see what kind of weird output I could come up with as well.
Yeah, the beauty of digital. And speaking of which, now that, say for example, you take Debbie or Senggen's approach to capturing volumetric shapes and models, right? Then the next question that some folks asked in Discord was, how do you do full motion body capture? And while there are a few ways, I think Eugene, you actually recently acquired a full motion body suit, right?
Oh yes. I also have the Azure Connect. I have 3. Then we tried to do like volumetric capture with like 3 Azures. That was early last year. Not early, like last year. It was last year, but then it was a lot of issues. Then we also got we could do the motion capture with the Kinect also, but it's a bit not very exaggerated. It's a very soft kind of you want to do a punch, then the animation capture is like a very weak punch. Yep. So we have the Rococo suit that we borrowed from the school, NTU. They have 2. So I went to ask them, hey, do you want to lend the alumni the Rococo suit for one project? So they lend it to me.
Cool.
And it works much better. And you can and it's very surprisingly very easy to use. Like last time when you wanted to do like motion capture, you need to have like a green screen studio, then have so many cameras around the place. Then now it's like a suit that you wear, and then you make sure there's no like magnets around, and then you got yourself an animation that you can later clean up in Blender or whatever software that you want.
I think this is where
so much time. Oh, sorry, I was going to say it saves so much time, because that's something I wish it's on my wish list also. Yeah, to do those kind of animation, because you want people and characters and humans in your scenes.
Well, you guys know who to turn to now if you need to borrow a suit. And I guess Christopher, that's also something that you use in your films, right? Your Tinker film.
Yeah, actually, on our first test in the first few months of production, we're actually also using full body motion suits. But because of the pandemic, we had to simplify it, because our actor isn't too technical, and he needs to be able to set up everything on his own every time we have a performance. So we just resorted to like using the Oculus Quest and just applying inverse kinematics body to our avatars.
Interesting.
Which still produces decent results. But yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
Okay. Nice.
Multiple solutions to the same problem. Very good.
I think
yeah, I think a lot of folks are asking in Discord, and you can see the multitude of solutions here. So the baseline or the moral of the story is be resourceful. Back moral steel. Yeah.
I think that was also a good extension to the Discord channel on how that can be a resource whereby we can build up a community of not just shared hardware, software, but also inspirations and learnings from the works that we've done. And then maybe that can help to, seed the next generation of new artists that might be budding in the scene. But I would maybe put a caveat to say that if you're intending to look for hardware, you probably need to find a way for budget lah. Quite hard to always go to the dude and ask him for freebies, right? Or any of them here. So come up with a game plan for that, I would say. And speaking of game plan, maybe we'll end off with the panel with maybe a round to see whether you're able to share with us, what are some of the projects you're able to non-NDA withstanding to share with us next that you're working on. Anybody want to start? Go down the list.
Yeah, sure, I'll go. So I think I mentioned earlier as well, I think we are exploring a bit more on the digital twin precinct level kind of experiences. Essentially, what would the virtual second life look like for heritage, right? What are the kinds of things we can create within that space that we may be more limited with on the physical space, right? But also quite importantly, I think as we transit back to post-COVID, I think we are looking at more of a hybrid kind of experience where there is both a physical as well as a virtual component, and what might that intersection be? Yeah, so I think those are upcoming, and of course, I think DigiMuse would typically also put out an open call at some point, so where we will reach out to creators and technologists and artists to see, what are the kinds of interesting ideas you guys might have to support as part of this process. Yeah.
Nice. That's where we would tell our overseas friends you have no reason, no excuse not to be able to see Singapore or virtually visit Singapore anytime. Yeah, anybody else want to jump in?
Yeah, I have one project that I'm only supposed to talk about next week, but I guess I can vaguely talk about it. It's going to be AR at Somerset area. Okay. Yeah, I think officially you can follow my Instagram to look out for more details. But for now, I just leave it as that. Somerset, there's going to be some AR there.
All right, watch out for that. Get you going to Orchard Road again. Yeah. Anybody else would like to share what they are working on next?
Sure. I can share. Well, I plan to work on a collaborative VR project with other sound artists in Singapore to produce a work around the torturous work from home condition, the sound condition as well. I mean, today is really lucky because we do so many Zooms. I'm lucky there isn't hacking. Normally there is. I live in a HDB flat with HIP ongoing. So people do construction non-stop, day in, day night, even on Saturdays. So I don't know how all of you are working from home, but yeah, it's very noisy. Yeah. So that's what I'm working on.
I'm working on that short film. So that's going to come out end of this year or next year. Yeah.
at the gallery, we're exploring quite a broad range of things. But one of the things that we are exploring is that we know that VR and all that is quite sexy, but on its own, we're trying to figure out how to do great storytelling. So we've been watching the likes of, you might be aware that Hossein Leong's company had worked with Raffles Hotel, and there was also another production done by another theater practice where it's similar to what Christopher has done. It's like live performance in the VR space.
Oh, wow.
So we're trying to explore those avenues. But I'm also mindful that, well, there are some very punctuated experiences that can be had, like human to human in a virtual setting. I'm also keen to explore standalone experiences that people can take on and experience anytime. So we are exploring these this spectrum of experiences to try and explore this space and see what sticks.
And Chris, would you be fully focused on getting a celebrity actor to step into the shoes for your next undertaking for Tinker? Is that
That's the
the
goal,
next
actually.
pipeline? Is that the
That's
next?
the goal. Yeah, that's the goal actually for us to really raise more awareness and more funding for the project.
Okay. Also, because of the Khan's background as well, there have been agencies and sellers who are interested in XR works as well. So maybe you want to check out as well. They are ready to resell that concept of what is it about. And maybe last but not least, whether Iran got any Unity goodies to share in the pipeline for what features are coming out for us to sink our teeth into.
I think for features wise, probably the roadmap is the best place to look. We are working on a number of things. It's pretty varied because Unity as a company, they are looking at a number of fields outside of XR. So I think there's some pretty interesting stuff in like computer vision, simulation, which could potentially have, of course, lead-on effects, right? Like presumably, we started work in AI originally for to help, I guess users to maybe stress test games, develop new AIs, for example. But suddenly they realize, hey, actually, you can use it to teach self-driving vehicles and that kind of thing. So there's quite a bit of overlap. So I don't know, we'll see. But I think personally, at least for as a consumer, I am looking forward to where AR is going. Currently, I feel it's still a bit lacking in the space. I haven't gotten a VR headset yet, but hopefully, maybe one day. Oculus Quest, maybe.
You haven't?
Yeah. Yeah. Soon, I hope.
Okay. And of course, those who know Iran, he posts very regularly on his LinkedIn. So I guess connect with him if you can and see all the posts that he shares. Thanks everybody for that. I think really extensive panel. Let me pass the time back to Ernie.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for joining us today. And thanks to our viewers for staying with us to the right now. And it sounds like our speakers will be building lots of cool new stuff that we'll be looking forward to learning about. And if there is one actionable thing that you can take away from today, just remember to go play the game this weekend. I hope that inspires you to create great art that evokes emotions as powerful as the fun that I get from Genshin Impact. And we have heard a lot of different perspectives today, and we'd like to hear from you as well. So please help us to complete this survey form that will take no more than 3 minutes of your time. It means a lot to us because we use this feedback and suggestions to continuously improve. The survey link is at tinyurl.com/ylabxrfeedback. As you can see from our minimalistic YouTube channel at the moment, this is a very young initiative, and we hope to create lots of exciting new content for the arts and tech community. So please help us out by leaving your feedback behind. This whole conversation about XR is really interesting, and I am reminded of something I heard actually just last night. That apparently the first Nokia 大哥大 that Yiren was talking about also cost around $1,000 when it just came out in 1992. Just think about all those parallels between that and our current developments with XR. What is emerging from our panel today, coupled with the fluctuations around COVID, is that it appears that XR is here to stay, and that these virtual worlds, games, and art will continue to give us the breathing space that we need amidst this ongoing chaos. So I've come to the end of our explorations for now. And we're seeing lots of interest about motion capture, getting started in XR, and talk of tech / being human / how art and tech relate to each other. So please feel free to continue the conversation on Discord. Our team and speakers will hang around till 5 p.m. to address any questions or queries or comments that you might have, whether it's pertaining to XR or maybe even just art tech in general. Remember that if you have any cool ideas to test out, you can check out ylab.sg and watch out for our upcoming programs. We look forward to seeing you at our next event. Thank you and have a fantastic weekend. Bye-bye.